We'll call this Wednesday's December 7th, 2016 Norco City Council meeting to order. We will now close to closed session. We're now going to bring the December 7th, 2016 Norco City Council meeting to order. I apologize for being a little bit late. We were held up in closed session. Is there any reportable action?
No, the council discussed the matters listed on the closed session agenda, and there is no reportable action.
Thank you, sir. We will now move to reconvening the public session, and Mayor Pro Tem Greg Newton will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Rise.
The flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Is Pastor Tui Halamoku of Beacon Hill here? There you are. Good evening, sir. Is your microphone on?
Let's pray. Our Heavenly Father, in Jesus' name, you are the King of Kings, King of Glory, Almighty God. You are the living God. Heaven and earth bow before you. But we are standing here in the City Council and pray to you, Lord, to help us. Help to the leader, help to the superintendent, manager, and all the governments this place around. I pray for your safety and protection. Lord, I pray for the people. We are standing together. They come their need. I pray to open a door of opportunity to meet their need for each one of them. Lord, I pray for everyone here. They give a wisdom. The leader and all the faithful workers of this city, give the wisdom to lead them, faithful, and their strength. Give all the workers the strength and all the work they do according to the word before us. In God we trust. And I pray right now, Lord, for everybody right now, your presence to be blessed. Bless them, and their children. And we give the honor and the glory to your mighty name, Jesus. And everybody say, amen.
Thank you, sir. Please note that Councilman Rowan Hanna is not present tonight. He's not here due to a personal issue. Moving on to recognition. Firefighter Hector Barrega, CAL FIRE. Sir, can you take it away? Tell us what he did.
Well, I wasn't prepared. I thought you were going to brief on the actions of that day, so I'll ad-lib. On about approximately 2 weeks ago, Hector Barragan from Fire Station 14 on Hamner was off duty, coming home with his uncle and child from putting tires on his wife's new car. And he noticed a coat and a pair of shoes sitting near a bridge in the city of Riverside. He noticed a gentleman sitting up on top of the bridge. Obviously, something was out of sorts. He stopped his vehicle, called 911, noticed that the gentleman was sitting on the bridge with a rope tied around his neck, and the rope was tied to the metal fencing on the bridge. It was obvious the intentions of the gentleman on the bridge. Hector, without hesitation, climbed up, engaged the gentleman, began to speak to him. All the while on 911, still with the dispatchers, had an exchange with the gentleman, was able to build a rapport with him. CHP eventually showed up, tried to access where they were. The gentleman became very agitated and was closer to jumping off the bridge. Hector asked the CHP officers to back away and continue to engage the gentleman. He was able to build enough of a rapport with him where he essentially talked him out of jumping off the bridge. He took the rope off of his neck, walked to where firefighter Barragan was, embraced him, and Hector walked him down to the waiting ambulance and the firefighters. So without question, Hector saved that man's life that day and put his own life at risk. So we're very proud of him, and it's just another example of the type of work that he does. So.
Thank you, sir. Come on over here, sir. So we are super proud of you. We're proud to be represented by CAL FIRE. I mean, to me, you are the epitome of the kind of firefighter that we want for our city of Norco. I mean, I look at these guys over here, and I'm just proud of all of you. But so, for Certificate of Appreciation, Hector Barragan, for taking immediate action and saving a life while off duty on the eve of Thanksgiving Day. Thank you for your compassion, level-headed thinking, and kindness toward those in need. You're a hero, sir. Thank you very much. You want to say anything? You sure? Thank you. Eric, who's our deputy tonight?
Deputy Arturo.
We got another one there?
I have Sergeant Justin Rowan, who used to patrol out here several years ago.
So let's thank them for protecting us. So moving on, I'm going to kind of take this a little bit before we bring up Miss Newton. About a year ago, maybe a year and a half. Thanks, fellas. Thank you very much. That's pretty cool. I don't know, about a year ago, I went with Andy Okoro to a meeting, and I said, Andy, he knew the problems we were having. We just couldn't get information out to the residents. And they had all these different apps and all these different things that you could do, and in a year, well, a little over a year maybe, we have developed a brand new website. We're on Twitter. We have a brand new Facebook page. We have all these ways to communicate to people. We have Nixle, different things like that. And what's nice is that we have a place where we can send residents to get accurate information. Just so you know, you do know that probably Facebook, you can't get the most accurate information. Good, you all know that. So anyway, what we try to do is he's created a just multi-pronged way of delivering information. And tonight, we're unveiling the City of Norco mobile app, which is absolutely amazing. I have to give a hand to Kelly Newton over here. She's the one that put this together. When I was looking at them, they were super expensive. And somehow well, to me, she's a kid. I've known her since she was like that tall. She figured out a way to do this so inexpensively, I can't even believe it. So I'm going to turn this over to Kelly and take it away.
Great. Good evening, Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council. Thank you for having me tonight. This presentation is about the City of Norco app. The City of Norco launched its new mobile app a week ago, last Wednesday, November 30th. To date, as of this morning, the app has been downloaded on nearly 800 devices thus far, which is pretty impressive in its first week. The app is compatible with iOS and Android devices, including smartphones, tablets, and iPads. The app can be downloaded from the iTunes App Store or the Google Play Store, depending on what type of device you'd like to download it on. So the following presentation will highlight a variety of the features that the Norco app offers to both Norco residents and Norco visitors. So to start, the Norco app has 3 menus. On the far left, this is the main menu. This is what you'll see every time that you open the app. In the upper left-hand corner, you see a phone icon. This will take you to what is called a quick call menu, which acts as a easy-to-use phone directory. You can call departments in the city or just different lines like utility billing, all directly through the app, without having to go through any hoops. Then on the far right-hand corner is a 3-bar menu, and this offers a scrollable menu with additional features that the app offers. So the primary reason for developing the Norco app was to provide residents with a platform that they could use to report issues that they observed in their community. The Report an Issue module is the top icon on the main menu of the app. After opening the module, users are asked to complete a user profile, then select the category of their issue type, and then select the subtype that the issue best falls under. After determining the category and the subtype of the issue, users are prompted to submit the issue location, either through the geolocation of their device or by manually entering an address. Next, users also have the ability to submit a picture of the issue that they'd like to report, and they may include a concise description of what they are reporting. After a user has submitted their report, anytime that a status update is made, they will receive a push notification directly to the device that they submitted the issue through. They'll also receive an email notification. Users may view their submitted reports at any time in the My Report section of the app, which can be found in the 3-bar menu. Here, users can track the status updates of the report, and they can also send additional notes to city staff about the issue. Other features in the Norco app include the government section, where users can contact any of the city council members, commissions, or advisory councils by phone or email directly through the app. So it takes out kind of an extra layer of effort to reach whoever, the body that they're looking to contact. Next, in the City Hall section, this allows users to contact city departments in a similar way as the government section, by phone or email directly through the app. In this section, users may also view and search through the Norco Municipal Code. In the City News module, users can view city news and alerts, as well as city Facebook and Twitter posts. And all of these entries are grabbed directly from the city website or from the feeds that go through our Facebook and Twitter. The app also offers 2 main business directories, Dine in Norco and Shop Norco. The directories break down Norco's selection of restaurants and shops into specific categories in which users are able to sort through entries based on their distance away from their current location or in alphabetical order. And this section will be updated throughout the next few months as we continue to add more categories. Other features of the Norco app include a Get Connected section where users can sign up to receive city news. They can follow the city on all of its social media and communication platforms, and they can watch city council meeting recordings. In addition, the app includes 2 different calendars, a community events calendar and a city meeting calendar. The community events calendar can be found on the main menu, and the city meeting calendar can be found in the 3-bar menu. Both of these calendars allow users to save events directly to their personal phone so that they can set alerts for themselves and they don't have to go back to verify what day or time something was going to occur. And finally, the Norco app includes a horse trail map, which shows your geolocation on the horse trail using GIS systems, and this can really benefit riders as they're riding through the various trails in town. More information about the Norco app can be found on the city's website or through any of its social media accounts. Residents may email norcoapp@ci.norco.ca.us if they have any questions, and they can always come down to City Hall if they need further assistance. Flyers of this exact image are on the table in the lobby in case anyone needs any further information. So I highly encourage you to continue to promote the Norco app as you're out in the community so that we can spread it to as many residents as possible and they can use it to its full advantage. This concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Does council have any questions? Outstanding.
Thank you.
Absolutely outstanding. This is a whole new world for residents to get stuff in and get stuff out, so that's really good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
By the way, Tony Winicki's there in the back. Tony is the director of our local naval base, and he works out of actually Fallbrook, Seal Beach, and Norco. We had a really wonderful event today. Thank you, sir, for allowing that to happen. We have a special presentation. I want to call it Tony Barreto. And on behalf of Horse Week, he has something to tell us.
Good evening.
Good evening.
On behalf of Horse Week and everyone that worked in cooperation, and also the Greens, we'd like to present a couple of checks.
Wow.
So we have one for the seniors and pets. So Diane, will you come up here and... Hi. I'm making a mess here.
Okay, you know that I'm a crier. You know that
So-
right off, don't you?
This one.
We have more room?
Yeah, let's squeeze it.
Okay.
Wait, I want to be able to take pictures.
Whoa, get away. It is,
Thank you.
it is.
Okay, let me give you the real one.
Okay. I would just like to say, Tony and Horse Week, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you. I don't know how you do it better every year, but for some reason you do. And it just makes, it makes Norco Horsetown USA what you do. Secondly, I'd like to thank you for all the help that you give all the seniors here. Generous donations in past years for the senior center. Marvelous, thank you. And thirdly, on behalf of myself, who's not going to cry, and Norco Senior Citizens and Pet Relief Group, I want to thank you for this. Low-income seniors proudly serve every month. You're going to make their holidays so very special. Thank you so
And
much.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
The next check is to the senior center, so.
I like this.
Walt and Stacy, come
Holy
on.
cow. You're gonna like this. 10 grand.
Here's the real one. Is that real? Yeah. You can take a picture of this one. This will work.
I want to say something.
Well, Tony, on behalf of Parks and Recreation Department, I'd like to personally thank you for this generous donation. I can't think of a better place to donate to other than the senior center and the seniors who visit it every day. It'll go to programs and events in the future, and it's truly, truly appreciated, and I thank you to the bottom of my heart. Thank you, my friend.
Merry Christmas to everybody.
Speaking for council, I want to thank the Green family for your generosity. I want to thank Tony. This is an amazing town we live in. Thank you very much. Thank you. From Riverside County Flood Control, I want to call up Helio Tacano and Bob Cullen to give a presentation. Good evening, guys. How are you?
Good evening, Mayor Bash. It's actually just Elio Tacano and David Cortez.
Okay.
Bob Collin couldn't make it tonight.
Okay.
So, okay. Thank you, Mayor Bash and council members for having us here. My name is Elio Tacano. I'm the project manager, and this is David Cortez. He's the project engineer. We're from Riverside County Flood Control, and we're here to talk about the Norco MDP line NA-1 and NA-1A, also known as the Crestview Project Storm Drain. Tonight, we're going to go over the project area, the drainage issues, give you a project update, and also talk about the future work that needs to be accomplished in order to finish the project. So here you have the project area. It's off of 6th Street on the bottom and Crestview. These areas that you see shown on the map are the drainage areas. There's about 8 to 9 sub-drainage boundaries in it, and the blue dots represent the top of the hill. So whenever it rains, the water just comes down the hill and goes towards the Crestview Drive. Now, back in the 1960s, the district was able to make a proposed master drainage plan for this area, which is shown the red lines right here. Line NA is on 6th Street, line NA-1 on Crestview Drive, and NA-1A on Mount Rushmore. Now, this master drainage plan proposal done back in the 1960s was only designed for the 10-year facility, and it wasn't accounted to take into account the debris coming off of the hills. Now, what's existing currently in the underground system is the red lines over there, which is the line NA and a portion of line NA-1. Those two lines are maintained by the Riverside County Flood Control. And also there's a line Z, which is the little yellow line you see on Crestview Drive. That line is actually maintained by the city of Norco and was built part of track 29588, which you see on the right side, just below the hill. Now, back in January 2015, the district met with the city council during a workshop, and we did a presentation on the project charter. In that project charter, we talked about the problem areas and also identify conceptual alternatives for further study. So back in that meeting, we discussed the red dot areas, which is the flood and debris prone areas, and also the existing storm drain facilities that are on the ground. From that initial study charter, we were able to come up with several ideas, which are shown over here. The green lines and the blue lines are the proposed storm drain alignments and a collector channel. And the yellow square dot areas are actually potential locations for debris capture systems. Now, during that time, we also gave a preliminary timeline for the project. It would take about 1.5 years to finalize an alternative and 5 years to complete the project. Since then, in 2015, city staff requested if the district can take a look into a temporary debris basin before the rainy season so that we could put at least something down there to capture some of the flows that are coming down the hill. Now, we decided to go ahead and start doing some temporary debris basin design. And this basin actually only takes care of the 3 watersheds that you see on the right, the blue one, the green area, and the red area. So you only take 1/3 of the problem. The city also let us know later in September that they were still in negotiation with the cemetery property owner for the right-of-way acquisition, and then there were some issues with the environmental permits. So at that time, we were able to find out that the temporary project, was not able to get into the ground in time without these outstanding issues coming along. So the district instead continued working on the 30% plan for the ultimate basin, which you see the location in the circle, the little black area right there. And this is the overview of the 30% plan of the ultimate debris basin / mud capture area within the cemetery property. So to continue this, what we're going to do is continue we have to get a geotechnical investigation report, investigation in this area, along with the areas where we're going to plan to put the storm drain and the collector channel area. This is the overview of the preliminary 30% plan with the ultimate debris basin. However, since this is going to go before the line NA alignment, any flows coming out of the basin will actually go towards the Crestview Drive until such time that NA is finalized in design and then constructed. David Cortez is going to talk about what we're currently doing right now and what still needs to be done. Here you go, David.
So the next item is the preliminary environmental assessment, and the purpose of this assessment was to identify the potential impacts of alternatives that were identified in that project charter. It was completed in July of 2016, and in a nutshell, there are probably going to be some environmental impacts, but nothing that should withhold the project from moving forward. So here you can see an exhibit that came from that assessment. What you're seeing is all of the areas which were identified in the charter. We have potential debris basin locations, which are the shaded colored regions, and then the potential storm drain alignments are the solid lines within the street and along the north side of the neighborhood there. The primary impacts that they noted were 15 drainage areas, and they're labeled 1 through 15 along the hillside, which are considered to be California Department of Fish and Wildlife jurisdictional areas, as also waters of the state. So what this means is that price tag on the bottom of $200,000 per acre is what we're probably going to have to pay in mitigation fees for any portions of our project which touch these areas. Luckily, not too much of the project are within these areas, less than an acre and a half at max. So we're looking to add to the price tag, but not too much. They also determined that the approximate timeline for the environmental work is about 10 months. The next update is regarding the storm drain alignment. We've been taking a look at the existing facilities that are in the street and making sure that they're going to work with the ultimate facility. From this analysis, what we've found is this storm drain line Z is actually undersized. Like we said, it was built with a track 29588, and it likely didn't anticipate that the final master drainage plan line was going to come in. So in order to make this system have 10-year protection for the community, we are going to extend our project, remove line Z, and replace it with a larger pipe. And that final storm drain alignment is going to look like that light blue line. It's going to go in Crestview Drive all the way up and connect directly into the debris basin. And then we're going to have our lateral in Mount Rushmore Drive extending about halfway up the street to clean up that intersection at Crestview and Mount Rushmore Drive. And what we're currently working on is this collector channel alternative that we mentioned earlier. It was identified in the charter that people are getting hit with storm flows and mud and debris on the back sides of their properties right at the base of the hill. And the master drainage line never anticipated that they were going to have these debris problems. So what they came up with, the concept was that a collector channel / retaining wall structure would be built along the north edge of the property to collect mud and storm flows and convey them to the storm drain system that we're going to be putting in Crestview Drive. Now, this does have its issues, which we're still looking into. It has the potential to simply move the mud and debris problem from the people's backyards back to Crestview Drive. We are looking into ways of trying to ensure that our storm drain won't get clogged with mud. We also have right-of-way issues of fitting these structures in between existing homes, as well as maintenance access for equipment to clean it up after a rain event. So from here, the next steps are, like Elio said, to conduct a geotechnical investigation of the basin site and storm drain and collector alignments. Once we have this information, we can finalize our alternative, and then we can meet back with the city and the community to get approval on our final project. And once we present to you guys, we will continue on the construction drawings for finishing up the 30% plans for the basin, and as well as starting the storm drain plans. So as far as the timeline goes, when last we met, it was looking like about a year and a half to finalize the alternative, which would have been in July of this year, and 5 years to full completion of the project, which would have been 2020. And where we are is that we anticipate having the alternative finished in the spring of 2017, which is a little bit longer than expected, but we've been spending that time working on the 30% plans for the basin. So it's been time well spent, and it would have been work that we needed to do anyways, so it simply is a shuffling of the schedule. And our estimated construction dates for the storm drain is still 2019, and the debris basin we still anticipate to be able to construct earlier. That's really going to depend on how the results of the geotechnical investigation go. Are there any questions?
Do you think you can still maintain that 2020 completion date?
For the basin, yes, and for the collector channel, that's depending on the geotechnical report and also the right-of-way issues over there.
Do you have any indication on time that schedule would slip?
That one, it's hard to say because right-of-way acquisition, it's not a set timeline, because depending on the residents and the property owners, they could fight against us or they could work with us. So that's really, it's a hard target to figure that out.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? Great, thank you, fellas.
We'll be waiting outside for like 10 minutes if there's any residents that want to get our contact information.
Okay, great.
Or talk to us. We'll be right out there.
Great.
Thank you.
So, moving on to the selection of the new mayor. Do we have any cards on this issue?
No cards on this, Mayor.
Okay. So, do I hear a motion for the new mayor?
Mayor, I nominate Mayor Pro Tem Greg Newton for mayor.
Councilmember Grunmeyer? Councilmember Hoffman? Mayor Pro Tem Newton? Mayor Bash?
Yes.
That motion carries.
So,
Well, thank you. Okay, we're now going to go to reorganization, item B, election of Mayor Pro Tem. Do I hear any?
I make a motion for Ted Hoffman.
Councilmember Grunmeyer. Councilmember Hoffman. Councilmember Bash.
Yes.
Mayor Newton.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Congratulations, Ted. Okay, if you would please bear with me, let me get my legs underneath me. I'd like all the council members to step to the podium, and we're going to have a presentation and some comments to outgoing Mayor Kevin Bash. Okay. step up. You've done all this
Staff,
this year?
great staff.
Okay. Been a pleasure. This is for you. The record of accomplishments.
I broke it.
It's a low bid. And your little plaque and certificate. Couple of comments that I wanted to make when you were first running for council, and I was on planning commission. If you remember, we went to, I think it was Hillside Lane, and we looked at some drainage projects that were stalled forever, and your concerns with the residents at the end of that street. So this is basically what Kevin's done this year as mayor, and I think the underlying thing that we need to remember is nobody can keep up with him, and our Measure A gas tax would not be as high without you driving all over Southern California. So I think we should give you that thank you. But some of the capital projects that Kevin's worked on has been supported the completion of the Public Arts Project, George Engels Event Center, 3rd Street storm drain and water line improvements, sanitary sewer management plan audit, and then supported the completion of the following street projects this year: Hamner Avenue, Temescal Avenue, 3rd Street, Hialeah Circle, Valley View Avenue, Hilltop Lane, Sierra Avenue, Hamner Avenue, that's from Detroit to the bridge, Hillside Avenue, 6th to 7th Street, 4th Street, that was Hillside to Temescal at Sierra, Lookout Point, Norco Drive at 5th Street to Shadow Canyon. With council, supported the inspection and repair of all city fire hydrants, supported acceptance and recording of on-site city improvements at Silver Lakes, supported the approval of the urban water management plan, supported the completion of the following water pipeline projects that we accomplished this year: Vine Street, Stage Tree Lane, Bluff Street, Western Avenue, and also supported the completion of the following trail improvements at 3rd Street, the Peninsula area, Valley View Avenue, Corridon, and 4th Street. Now, with that, within the city, Kevin's also represented the city in regional government and on different city committees, represented the city on Western Riverside Council of Governments, WRCOG, Riverside Conservation Authority, the Corona Norco Schools Committee, George Engels Veterans Memorial Plaza, and Unload. Initiated successful city efforts to oppose residential development of the La Sierra lands, which is an ongoing battle. And you deserve a lot more credit for that, for taking up that charge. Supported funding to the Lake Norconian Club Foundation for repairs and protection of the Lake Norconian Hotel and artifacts. Provided leadership in the development and approval of the city's strategic plan for 2016. Skip it. We consolidated the municipal election. Presided over Pearl Harbor Day, and it was very successful this year, and the Norco Film Festival celebrations. Provided leadership in the completion of city-funded survey of Norconian historic properties. Supported establishment of the Norco Youth Advisory Council. Established the wheelchair basketball tournament in the city for the last few years, which has also been a major success, and championed hosting the town hall meetings by different and various civic groups. I'll let you guys share some of that also.
Thank you,
So breathe.
Councilman Hoffman.
I'm awake.
All right. If we look at the accomplishments and technology that the city of Norco's had in this last year when Kevin has been the mayor, it's pretty astounding where we've come from. The city website has had a major overhaul. You all should be on Nixle and get those little announcements when streets are closed or trees have fallen down. We also have Twitter for those of you that tweet and read all of those kind of things. We're up to date on that. And then the fabulous new City of Norco app that we just saw today, which again, you should all sign up if you haven't already. So all of that came under Kevin's leadership. We also have in Public Works, where we have a work order system in GIS now that is great. And then we see the camera in the back where all of our meetings are recorded and put online for people. All of those are in the name of transparency, getting information out to the residents, and something that Kevin should be really proud of. When we look at land use, we have two major accomplishments. The first one is our marijuana ordinance, making sure that we don't allow the transportation, sale, cultivation, all those things of marijuana in the city of Norco. And then lastly, when we look at the area of Hidden Valley and Corona Avenue, changing the zoning on that to a commercial property to look at increasing tax revenues for our city. So in those two areas, Kevin has been a great leader and has a lot of accomplishments to look fondly on for this last year.
I can't remember that well, but that was good.
I didn't do half those things, but it's okay.
Yeah, I know you didn't do half. We did the other half. I sit with Kevin, well, we did sit on the Economic Development Board Commission, and he sits on the Veterans Executive Committee with me. So I get to see him more often than other members, and I don't know why he keeps having me on these committees with him, because we butt heads, and that's a good thing. Because the good thing about Kevin, and I'll digress a little bit, he does argue his point, but he also listens to the other point, and that's a good thing about Kevin. Sometimes he argues a little too much, and we have to set him down, but that's fine. But some of the things he's accomplished in the Economic Development Department, he supported the purchase and sale agreement of the four-wheel drive successor agency parcel, which led to the establishment of the Paul Blanco Good Car Company dealership. He supported the approval of the Lewis Retail Center development on Corridon Avenue and River Road. And I tell you, that's going to be a shining star in our city on that side, if you haven't seen it. And Kevin, I thank you for bringing Lewis and introducing me to him, because I'm really excited about that project. Recommended the implementation of the Business Appreciation Initiative by EDAC. Led the development of the City of Norco video tour, available on the city's website. Supported the renovation of the Norco Auto Mall sign. Served on the city's Economic Development Advisory Council, and championed the new business, including Les Schwab, the O'Reilly Auto Parts, Piology, and local burrito businesses. Some of the financial incentives that Kevin has brought to the town: secured repayment of the city advances for the Silver Lake projects. As you know, that has been an ongoing process, and Kevin, I think you've been on since the beginning, and we're seeing some of the fruits of that now. Balance the operating budgets, increase general fund reserves by $1.8 million. As he always said, I remember when I first came on, we didn't have any money in our checkbook to make payment, and now we have a good solid reserve. So I know it's been all the council, but we hit a milestone this year with almost a $10 million reserve in our balance. So Kevin and the staff have done an excellent job on that. Supported the second round of the third-party financing for the Silver Lake project through the California Public Financing Authority, completed a study of the water and sewer rate system, and completed a citywide cost allocation plan. So Kevin, congratulations on all those accomplishments.
I guess say
a few words. Got to listen to the boss. Okay, Mayor. Come on, Mayor.
I am. So behind every successful council person or mayor, there is a great city manager, and I have to give kudos to Andy Cora. I got lucky. He's been phenomenal. I've been lucky to have really a good council. We do butt heads, but I think we're all still friends. And I love it when people say, when the last election came around, they said, oh, you're all just going to go the same direction. Well, I knew Ted Hoffman, I knew Berwin Hanna, I knew Greg Newton, and I knew Robin Grunmeyer, and I was pretty certain that it would be for good discussions. It's been an honor to be the mayor of Norco. I've really enjoyed it. It's a lot of work, but again, I was buoyed by an excellent staff, even down to the guy that hands out the basketballs and makes the basketball program work at the gymnasium. So I thank all of them for making whatever success I have. Thank you.
Okay, we'll move into City Council business items, City Council communications, reports on regional boards and commissions. Robin. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On November 17th, I was able to attend the Red Ribbon Awards ceremony where students that were in the contest district-wide were recognized for their posters, their media, and their essays. They had a nice dinner. The Zeller family presents the awards, and it's a great event. I was able to go to the backyard for the first time at Silver Lakes during the showcase, which was nice. We had an unload meeting on the 28th with a presentation on some of the implications of Prop 64. On the 29th, I was able to go over to Riverside Community College and see our new trustee sworn in, Mr. Bill Hedrick, for Norco College. And then today, we did a critique meeting for all of the Red Ribbon Week activities and looked at what we can do better for next year.
Thank you, Robin. Ted?
This past week, I joined over Thanksgiving weekend the inaugural opening of the backyard up at Silver Lakes and the showcase for the college soccer teams. Quite a display up there, as Robin said. Also went to Las Vegas on my own dime, by the way, representing the city of in their NART program, as was I'm a team leader there, and listened to the updates on the animal welfare programs there. We do utilize, they bring in the professionals, so as part of our training, listen to what's going on in the industry as far as animal handling and animal welfare issues, and it's put on by the professionals and the veterinarians from across the country. Also, was there in, I don't know what's still Frankie's fire here, but was there for the reception and receiving of the Women's Professional Rodeo Association's award for having the second best arena dirt in the state of California. We have a hard time beating Salinas because they have 3 or 4 tractors at the same time and we do it with 1. And so I'm very honored to be there along with Patty Ireland and Keith Price, and along with members of the Norco Posse to receive that award in the name of Norco. So, and that's all, Mayor. Thank you.
Kevin?
Attended WRCOG and RCA. Nothing really reportable. Kind of winding down. And then I attended the Pearl Harbor Day today, which was so great. Thank you to the Navy, Captain Murray, and the SEAL Beach captain were fantastic. And it's I get way too much credit for it when I think of all the people that put their time and energy into that event. Linda Dixon, Ed Dixon. I mean, we're the first ones there, we're the last ones to leave, but they're right there with me, and it was a phenomenal day. Thank you, Tony, very much. Thank you for letting us do that. The seniors, I'm going to get an update on the seniors. One of the things I really want is they'd like to extend their hours at the senior center. That's something I think we need to look at. I, too, went to the backyard, went to that event. I had the incredible honor of, there was a Canada and then USA girls select team, and they were playing in the rain for about 200 coaches from all over the United States. And Canada beat us because the USA team, of course, was sort of, pretending that they weren't all that good. I'm just kidding, no. No, the truth is they had never played together before, and they were still incredible. So that was a lot of fun. I got to do the coin toss, and that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. These last couple of weeks, on November 29th, I participated in the teleconference on the Western Riverside County Regional Wastewater Authority. That's the RCWA Board of Directors. Basically, our discussion on that meeting was that additional attorney's fees to still work on the petition to change for the recycled water. The basis of that discussion, it was a fairly active discussion, was to further come to terms with the fish and game, and no need yet to push at a state level or consider going to trial at this time, that we should just keep in discussions with fish and wildlife on that. The project update on the RCWA expansion is about 75% complete at this time. Hopefully, we're looking at completion next year. And there's no timeline yet that I can give for that petition of change for the recycled water. Then on December 1st, I attended the Chino de Salter Authority, that's our CDA board meeting. Most of the actions were routine and not anything really specific to report on that. And then this past Monday, we had the ad hoc committee on accessory buildings, and we're making progress with the committee members and with staff, and we'll meet again, I believe, in 2 weeks. That's all I have to report for now. We'll move to City Council consent items. Does anybody care to pull any items? E?
And D, please.
E, D. Motion to approve the rest.
Councilmember Bash? Yes. Councilmember Grunmeyer? Yes. Mayor Pro Tem Hoffman? Yes. Mayor Bash? Or excuse me, Newton, I'm sorry.
Yep.
I was looking, Mayor Newton. Apologize.
You owe me $1.
I do.
Okay. Yes.
Motion carries.
Items A, B, and C, so approved. Kevin, item E.
I have some other people want to add to this. I think that one of the advantages of people working in the various areas in the county, it gives them a knowledge. So I want to give kudos to Greg for suggesting that we maybe try to hold a hard line on this, because I think we made, $130,000 over and above. And so I think that that was a great move, and thank you, Chad, for trusting in that and going for it, and we really appreciate that. Thank you very much. That's all I have to say, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. I'd like to comment on that also, to thank our Public Works Director and our City Manager for, as someone else has said, making a great deal. Okay. Motion to approve?
Councilmember Bash? Yes. Councilmember Grunmeyer? Mayor Pro Tem Hoffman? Mayor Newton?
Yes.
Motion carries.
That item E is approved. Item D, Robin?
I just wanted to say thank you for getting a grant. It's always nice to see city staff and folks working together to get that money wherever we can get it. So I just wanted to bring it to the residents' attention that they were able to secure a grant for $3,926 to help with CERT. Here's hoping we never have to use the CERT Center, but thank you for a job well done. Move to approve.
Councilmember Bash? Yes. Councilmember Gunmeyer? Yes. Mayor Pro Tem Hoffman? Yes. Mayor Newton?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Item D on the consent calendar is approved. We'll go to item 4, public comments.
Mayor, I have one card. Scott DeRosa.
Turns out. Hi, Scott.
Hello, good evening, Council, and congratulations, Mayor Newton and Mayor Pro Tem Hoffman, get my names here, and Kevin. Just want to comment, thank you for all your influence and the work that you've done this past year as mayor. It definitely was appreciated by all the residents. Kind of hard to follow up after all that, what I'm bringing to the counter here to just share with the council as a concern for traffic safety. I just want to bring to your attention that it might, and hopefully it will be taken into consideration, that the intersection of Hillside and 2nd Street it could use stop signs. Right now there's a stop sign at 2nd Street at Hillside, and Hillside goes straight through. At drop-off in the morning at the high school, and also at pickup, but more so at drop-off, that intersection can be quite hazardous and dangerous. I travel that daily. And anybody that's making a left-hand turn from 2nd Street onto Hillside, or even from Hillside onto 2nd Street, again, a left-hand turn, is usually faced with a lot of traffic obstruction where cars are racing past, people trying to make that left-hand turn, especially from 2nd onto Hillside, often are met with cars that are passing on the right-hand side of the traffic on Hillside heading northbound, and near collisions happen quite often. Myself have experienced it probably about 3 or 4 times. So I'm just simply suggesting that it be looked at and maybe considered to have a stop sign at that location so that the cross traffic on Hillside is stopping and not creating a situation where traffic feels it's okay to pass on the right-hand side and potential accidents. I've even seen where students get dropped off on the curbside on Hillside and they try to cross through there with everybody racing past and trying to get to work and drop off the kids to the other schools. So just that, if it would be taken a look at, I think if somebody was there around 7:30 in the morning, they would see how dangerous it really is. And then one other little tiny, I got the wrong paper here. Never mind, cancel the last thing. So that was it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Scott.
Mayor, I have an additional card. Jeff Cahan.
Good evening, Jeff.
Congratulations, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor and Council, I'm here on behalf of the Parade of Lights and Christmas Festival Committee to remind you and to remind the audience that we have our event this Saturday for 12 hours up at the Nellie Weaver Hall area from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. is the Christmas Festival, beginning with Breakfast with Santa from 9 to 11. And then we have many, many vendors, both food vendors and craft vendors, that'll be on the grounds at the Nellie Weaver area all day until 9. And of course, we have our wonderful Parade of Lights at 5 o'clock sharp on 6th Street, beginning at Corona and heading eastward towards Ingalls Park. I want to make sure everybody understands that this is a city event, but it is not done with city money. We have some wonderful sponsors that make this event happen. We can't do this without the help of Browning, Dodge, Hemborg Ford, Lucas Oil. We saw the wonderful donations from the Green family. They've donated to our festival and parade. Mavericks, Horse Week, NHA, Rural, the Mounted Posse, other groups within town have come together to support our event. But beyond our sponsors, we have a committee, and these people are fantastic, and I want to publicly recognize them because without their hard work and dedication, this event wouldn't happen. We have some staff members in Parks and Rec that go above and beyond on every event. but Michelle Anglin is a jewel to this town, and she deserves the recognition that I don't know that she gets often enough to help, not just with this event, but every event that we have, along with Peggy Calvert and Patty Ireland. And in charge of our Breakfast with Santa is Crystal Foster, with the support of Hank Koch and Michelle Ehrenberg, our new special events coordinator, and the entire Parks and Rec staff. They go out of their way to make this event and all of our events wonderful. But those are staff people. We have some wonderful volunteers who volunteer their time at no pay, and they go out of their way. Kathy Burt, Wanda Croson, Jennifer Gable, our parade committee extraordinaire chairman Pat Overstreet, and I have to recognize Don and Kathy Kramer. You residents of Norco do not know what Don and Kathy Kramer do for this town. They do so much, I don't even know how they can do it. And we owe them a debt of gratitude because of the time he's up there decorating, doing all sorts of things, both him and his wife. They are just absolute treasure for Norco. So this committee puts on this event for this town. Please join us on Saturday the 10th. And appreciate your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.
Another card was submitted. Larry, I believe it's Jenkins.
My name is Larry Jenkins. I've lived in Norco for 47 years. On Hillside, about the area where the gentleman just spoke. It is a speedway from 2nd to 3rd. The question is, how fast will your truck go? I not only go through the intersection that he discusses, and indeed all of the issues are there, who's going to turn left in front of who, and who's going to get hit. One of the quieting zones, in particular the northern one between 2nd and 3rd, was the last driving opportunity for my wife some years ago. I don't know how she went over that quieting zone, but she didn't hit either one of the 2 slow signs. She took out 2 tires and 2 rims. Did not scratch the car. She hit it hard enough, however, to blow those tires and blow both of those rims. So it is a problem. One of the problems is that Hillside from 2nd to 3rd has never been properly graded. Consequently, water doesn't drain properly. My house happens to be the catch-all of the moment. So as you come up to 2313, across this, or next to me, is a house there that is got a little brick wall. We have some more fence there. Wonderful neighbors. We have 10-foot gates between us in the backyards that have never been locked in the 47 years I've lived there. We do like each other in that street. But the people who drive by don't like it. And so on the east side, as you go past my house in particular, there is always a depression, if you would, alongside of the macadam, somewhere between 6, 9, perhaps even a foot deep, so that when it rains, you've got a water puddle. And what do high school kids do when they see a water puddle? They drive through it. It would be a poor wish, but I swear I wish that they would get 1 foot in that ditch, spin out and roll, and then perhaps hit the telephone pole on either side of our homes. The problem being that it goes clear back to when Hillside itself was even turned into a street. Because if you go by there, you'll realize that the homes on the west side are down, 8 feet from street level? That's where the street started. It used to be 8 feet below what it is now. And when they built the houses on the east side, they elevated the street to go by, and you have about a 10-foot run that is dedicated to the city in front of our homes, it is city property that is not maintained.
I'm going to have to ask you to wrap it up,
So-
please. Thank you.
Perhaps somebody would drive by and have a look, understand that the property from the water meters to the street is city property by deed. It is not maintained. It is dangerous. And nothing happens. I urge you to do something.
Thank you, and we'll have our Public Works Director address that. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
One of the things, maybe Scott, see Chad, there is things happening at that particular corner, as well as the street that was just described. So if you would maybe see Chad right here.
That concludes public comments.
Thank you, Cheryl. We'll now move into item 5A, public hearings. This is the Proposition 218 hearing. And we'll have introduction comments by our Public Works Director. Chad?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, everyone. This item is our Public 218 hearing regarding the proposed water and sewer rate increases that have been scheduled. This is the third public meeting we've had on this discussion. This is the one where the actual council will make a determination based on public comments whether or not to adopt or oppose the proposed rates that have been reviewed over the last several months. We've had a couple workshops, or one workshop for sure with the council and the STUC committee as a joint committee. We've had another workshop presentation to council. This is the third presentation. The presentation itself has not changed since the initial workshop, so you definitely have seen this several times. You should have the presentation in front of you. But we do want to make sure, obviously, because this is the official 218 hearing, review the presentation in its completeness. We have David Hyder from Hoxley Consulting here once again to review that presentation, and we're happy to answer any questions that staff has regarding the report. And then once that report's done, we'll take public comments and continue the discussion. So at this point, I'll turn it over to David and let him make his presentation.
Yeah, thank you, Chad.
Good evening, Dave.
Good evening. Congratulations, Mayor.
Thank you.
Good evening, council members. In terms of my presentation, as Chad mentioned, it is the same, so we'll be going through the same information, but I think it'll be good for the public to see kind of the process and the approach we've used to come up with the rates. So in terms of the agenda for the presentation, we're going to talk about these study objectives, some key assumptions and issues that are facing the city's water system in particular, look at some water and sewer fund financial planning scenarios, look at the rate designs that we're looking at and customer impacts, talk about drought rates and fire protection charges, and then I'll wrap it up with recommendations. So in terms of the study objectives, we were hired to complete a comprehensive rate study for the water and sewer enterprise funds. And a key component of that is to project the full cost of providing service for each fund over a 5-year projection period. And we include in that the capital reinvestments in the system. And we'll talk about that more in a minute. Once we've identified the cost of providing service, we need to develop financial plans, and we've developed financial plans that we want to ensure the sustainable and resilient operations within the water and sewer systems. We need to account for reductions in water use. We'll talk about that a fair amount, as well as future variability in terms of revenues in the system. We've evaluated and recommended some rate structures, both reviewing your current as well as alternative rate structures to meet your system goals. And we've accomplished all this within a financial model to support the analysis. We'll look at some of the outputs from that model. So in terms of the key issues, the number one issue that's facing the city is that the city has experienced a significant reduction in water sales over the last 2 years. If you look at the graph here, you'll see that the annual water sales have dropped about 30% since 2014. And as a result of that, the water fund, operating fund balance has been completely exhausted. And the way that you're actually meeting your budget in the current fiscal year is that you've had to transfer $700,000 from the capital fund. And then also, as was just mentioned, you have the sale of the 2,000 acre feet of excess carryover storage. That's essentially filling the gap in the current year. But going forward, your revenues within the water fund are not sufficient to fund the operating expenses of the water system. And the reason for that is because of the decline in water sales. Your system as it's set up right now is very dependent upon water sales to generate your revenues, with about 70% of your current water revenues based on water usage. So when people reduce their usage, your costs remain relatively fixed, but the revenues go down. And that's the reason why you're in the situation that you are right now. So when we look at the current rates, this is the current water and sewer rates. Current water rates, you have a fixed charge based on your meter size, and then a metered usage charge per 100 cubic feet of $2.22. As I mentioned, right now, 30% of your revenues come from the fixed charge and 70% come from the variable charge. So you're fairly dependent upon variable revenues for the water system. Now, in the sewer system, all customers pay $51 per month, and then if you're a non-residential customer, once you use over 10 HCF, you'd pay $8 per HCF. You also have a non-connect charge for customers that aren't connected but have access to the sewer system. And you'll notice on the sewer charges that about 71% of your revenues are fixed. So it's really the flip of the water system, whereas 30% are variable based upon that usage charge. So what we're recommending, given the situation that you're in when we looked at the rate structure, is we're recommending that in order to stabilize your water revenues, that you adopt an alternative water rate structure. And that structure would increase the fixed monthly charges based on a cost of service analysis. So we looked at those costs that are fixed, that would be representative, that should be recovered in that charge, and those were customer service, metering cost, and system peaking cost. And when we increase the fixed revenues, this would reduce the city's dependency on metered water usage, and it would provide greater revenue stability within the fund going forward. So based upon that cost of service analysis, we're recommending that you recover 46% of your revenues in the fixed charge and 54% in the variable charge. And I'll show you what those rates look like in a moment. So in terms of looking at a financial forecast, some of the key assumptions that we've made, we've assumed that using your fiscal year 17 budget as a starting point, that there's going to be annual increases at an inflationary level for O&M costs. I've also done a detailed analysis on your capital improvements, and we'll talk about that more in a second, looking at various funding levels and sources of funds. In terms of customers and usage, we're assuming that water usage continues at the current reduced levels. We don't believe that it's going to bounce back to what you saw back in 2014. And you're going to continue to see modest growth in the number of customers at about 0.5% per year, which is what you've historically seen. We're also recommending that you maintain and establish system reserves, particularly an operating maintenance reserve or working capital reserve. Right now, you don't have any any operating reserve within the water fund. We're recommending that you target 3 months. You do have that in the sewer fund. And then additionally in the water fund, we're recommending that you establish a rate stabilization reserve, which you would target at $2 million over the next 10 years. So you'd build that up over time. And that would help in the future if you were in a situation as you are now to help stabilize revenues. It's very common within the industry to have that type of reserve. And we're proposing to build it up over a gradual period of time to have a minimal impact on rates. We are assuming that you modify the water rate structure, 46% fixed, 54% variable. And then given the situation that the water fund is in currently, we're recommending that these rates become effective January 1. And then any subsequent adjustments would happen consistent with the fiscal year going through 2021. So we looked at a number of financial planning scenarios, attempting to look at how can we accomplish the objectives within the water fund and the sewer fund and minimize the rate impacts. For the water fund, we looked at a status quo scenario. What happens if we don't raise rates? We execute the CIP. What happens if we execute the CIP but don't use debt and increase rates? What happens if we do the full CIP and issue some debt? And then what happens if we reduce the CIP? When I say CIP, I'm talking about the capital improvements plan, your reinvestments in the system. So the first scenario here, and this is an output, the panel from our financial model. And what this shows is it shows no adjustments in rates. So along the top of the graph here, you can see we're assuming no water rate increases. Current average customer's bill is about $65, so obviously that wouldn't change. And then the outputs here show various metrics within the water fund. So if we don't raise rates, if we don't raise rates and you do execute the full CIP, so this would be the CIP spending over the next 5 years, what we're showing is that your cash balance within your operating fund would go negative by 2018. And I want to draw your attention to the graphic up here on the right, because this one really tells the story within the water fund. What the blue line is on the bottom is that's your revenues with your current rates. What the purple line is your operating expenditures. So as you can see, we're filling the gap in the current year with that $700,000 transfer. So that's why those lines match. But going forward, if we don't adjust rates, we can't even fund our operating expenses, let alone if we fund operating plus capital, there's a tremendous gap between our revenues and our expenditures. So that's really what's driving that negative balance within the operating fund. So given that scenario, we looked at a number of different scenarios. The first would be what would happen if we execute the full CIP. We bring our reserves back up to 3 months operating. We establish a minimal rate stabilization reserve. And the result would be that we'd have to do 30% increases this January 1st, and then another 30%, 18, 8.5, and that would get us to where we'd be in a more stable position. And you can see the blue and the red lines are now matching. But that would have a big impact on bills and rates for sure. So another scenario we looked at was, well, what happens if we try to mitigate some of those rate increases by completing the full CIP, but what if we issue debt for the CIP? That's an option. You could issue $21.4 million, fund most of the water CIP with debt. That would allow you to transition to having those 3 months. You could fund the rate stabilization reserve, and the rate increases would be less significant. That's one option. We've talked before, though, about the fact that anytime you issue debt, you're actually paying more in the long term because you're having to pay interest. And it's almost a 50% increase when you're looking out over the long term. So there are certainly consequences to issuing debt. So the last scenario that we looked at was what would happen if we reduced the CIP? What if we cut it in half? So we took our 5-year CIP and spread it out over 10 years. That would allow us, again, to transition to funding the O&M reserve, fund the rate stabilization reserve, and have increases as shown, so 15%, 12, and then again, you can see the impact to the customer bill. So it would be $13 a month for the average customer beginning January 1, and then the next year it would be $9 a month. So that would be the impacts under this scenario. So this sums them up. The first table here just shows the annual capital funded. So if you do the full CIP, you'd be funding $26.85 million. If you do half of it, it's 12. Under each of those scenarios, you can see the increases and then ultimately the impact of the customer bill. So what we're recommending and what's being proposed this evening is scenario 3. And you can see the customer bill impacts on the bottom, and talk more about that recommendation in a moment. But moving on to sewer system, the sewer fund is in a better position than the water fund. You currently do have a revenue fund balance. You can see here, if you don't do any increases, from an operating standpoint, you're able to basically fund the operating expenses. But ultimately, if you do execute the CIP, you can see that red line is above the blue in terms of our revenues not being able to fund our expenses. So you would run into a negative cash balance by 2020. So we looked at the same scenarios. What happens if we do the full CIP, maintain that 3 months? You'd have to do some increases immediately in order to keep revenues in line with expenditures. We also looked at if we borrowed some for the CIP, that would again allow us to reduce. We wouldn't have to do a rate increase this January 1 on the sewer side. We would borrow $7.5 million and maintain that O&M reserve and ultimately do 7% increases in future years. And finally, we did the same thing on the sewer side. We reduced the CIP, cut it in half. You can maintain a 3-month operating reserve. And this would allow you not to have to raise rates for a couple years on the sewer side. By the time you get to 2019, we're recommending they do 5.5. So again, summarizing the scenarios that were examined, we are recommending the scenario 3, so the customer's bill would stay the same on the sewer side for the next 2 years, and then it would go up to $54 per month by 2019. So in terms of our recommendations for the financial plan, we do recommend that you move forward with partial funding of the CIP. I think that this is the prudent approach given the current financial health of the water system. It does allow for more gradual adjustments to water and sewer rates. The city ultimately does have the option in the future, if they needed to more aggressively fund the CIP. We're also recommending within that scenario that capital improvement projects be funded with cash. Eliminates that interest expense going forward and does provide flexibility. Doesn't tie your hands in the future with that debt service on the books. So in terms of rate design and customer impacts, this proposed alternative water rates for fiscal year 17, so these would be the proposed rates beginning January 1. And this reflects the shift in the recovery of the fixed revenue to 46% and 54% for the variable revenue. Those are cost of service based. You can see that it does have a big impact on the fixed charge, and the usage rate would actually go down. In terms of customer impacts, so what this table shows is the number of bills that were issued during fiscal year 16 for each of these increments of water. Your average customer uses about 20 HCF per month. That represents about 68% or less of your total customers. Their current bill is $116. It would go to $123 in total, or $13 per month increase. And then you can see across the board the impacts to the various customer based upon their usage. In terms of the forecast of the 5-year rate plan, this again shows that transition to the recommended structure in fiscal year 17, and then the adjustments to the rates going forward. So on the sewer side, under our scenario recommendation number 3, again, the sewer rates would stay the same for the next 2 years, then they would increase by 5.5% beginning in fiscal year 19, and then subsequent years they would increase as well. So when we look at in terms of the average customer, again, this is somebody using 20 HCF. What their current bill is, $116 per month. In fiscal year 17, it would go to $129 or $13 a month increase. And then you can see going forward the increases that would be experienced by a customer that uses 20 HCF in each of the subsequent years. The last comparison is just a water and sewer bill comparison for some surrounding jurisdictions. You can see what Norco's current bill is at the 116, and then where it would go under the proposed rates. You can see that Corona's up at the top. Just always have to caution when you're comparing utilities. It's very difficult to get them on an apples-to-apples basis because of where different jurisdictions get their water from, if they're subsidizing it from the general fund, things of that sort. So it's always difficult to compare, and also these are their current rates. They don't reflect any adjustments that they may happen next year. So it's somewhat of not an apples-to-apples comparison in that sense. So next, last couple items, fire protection charges. So right now you assess private fire protection charges, the same charge as a 3/4 inch meter. So they pay that fixed service charge, $20.87 per month, regardless of their fire line size. What's typical in the industry is to assess a fire protection charge based upon the size of a line, because that represents the potential capacity that they can draw on the system. And when you have to reserve more capacity for a 10-inch meter versus a 10-inch line versus a 2-inch line, there's costs associated with that. So what we're recommending is that you graduate those charges based upon the fire line size to better reflect the costs of serving these customers, as well as being in conformity with the industry standards. What that looks like going forward, they would adjust with the other rates, so you can see the fixed charges for fire protection going forward. And the last item is drought rates. What a lot of communities are doing is adopting drought rates to address future conservation requirements. These rates would be established by the city, consistent with the Emergency Water Conservation Program water shortage response levels. So the proposed rate in fiscal year 17, you can see, is $2.12. During any of these emergency response levels, at the city council's discretion, they could decide that they'd want to put in a drought surcharge rate. This rate, again, would be completely at the City Council's discretion, but it would provide additional revenues should you have significant reductions in water use in response to the drought shortage levels. And that would apply to all usage for all customers. So that 37 cents, if you're at level 2, would apply to everybody's rate. But again, completely at the council's discretion. These do not go in place unless the council takes that action at a specific time in the future. So in summary, the current financial health of the water fund requires revenue adjustments. I don't think there's any doubts about that. You can't even fund your basic operating and maintenance expenditures. If you don't adjust rates going forward, you will default on your debt. You won't be able to purchase water. And just be a really dire situation. Based on the financial forecast, we do recommend that the city limit the capital spending to allow for gradual rate increases. To help provide stability and resiliency going forward, we recommend that you establish and maintain these reserves, both the operating as well as the rate stabilization reserve. And again, to address the issue going forward of revenue stability within the water fund, recommend that you adopt the cost of service based fixed charges, which will transition fixed revenues in the water system from 30% to 46%. And this would reduce the dependency on variable revenues and the susceptibility to revenue impacts due to usage reductions in the future. So with that, I turn it back to the council for any questions.
Thank you, Dave. If we can wait 1 second, if you don't mind, I'd like the city clerk to make some comments.
Thank you, Mayor. In compliance with the State of California Constitution and Proposition 218 Omnibus Implementation Act, as well as the California Government Code, the city mailed 9,375 public notices to all affected property owners and ratepayers regarding this 5-year water and sewer rate adjustment. The city clerk's office has received a total of 685 written protests. I'd like to make a comment that I will continue to receive written protests up until the close of the public hearing. And we do have forms available on the table in the lobby just outside council chambers. Thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl. Council questions of staff? Kevin? Ted?
I think we pretty much.
Robin? Okay. What I'd like to do is open the public hearing, but Chad and Dave, would you please take notes if any of the residents on any comments that maybe after public comments that you could address some of those under discussion. So at this time, I'd like to open the public hearing, and I would request that all the speakers pay attention to the 3-minute timeline, and if you feel that there's a group of you, if you'd like to have one speak for a few of you, you're more than welcome to do that, or you certainly have the right individually to use all three of your minutes.
Dave Stockton.
Let's open the public hearing.
Thank you. Dave Stockton.
Had to be first.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor, Mr. Mayor, council members, and ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for the opportunity to address you tonight. Not very good at this kind of thing, but I thought I had better speak my mind. My name is Dave Stockton, and I've been a resident of Norco for the past 17 years. I'm here this evening to protest the increase to the water and sewer rates. As most are aware, Americans today are paying much more and getting much less. This seems to be government's answer to all its woes from the national level on down to the local level. Several years ago, Norco residents paid $24 a month for a sewer hookup. In one increase, the city doubled that to $48, and then within a few years to the current $51 a month that we now pay. Now, within 5 years,
That's going to be increased to almost $60 a month. And at the same time, the fixed month water charge will be increased by almost 2.5 times, from about $21 a month that we currently pay to almost $48 a month. This is not sustainable. Most people today have incomes that have stagnated compared to inflation, or in many cases have declined. I know a number of people here in town living on fixed incomes or Social Security with no adjustments for inflation, let alone the alarming rate increases that you will all vote in. This is a plan to generate revenue that will be used for whatever, even a rainy day fund. We citizens need to hold our public servants accountable to the best serving the needs of the people, and at the same time to exercise the best financial stewardship, including the city manager and city attorney. I pray that this scenario is not repeated in 5 years from now, and I thank you all for listening to me, and God bless you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Warren Bacall.
Good evening.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Warren Bacall, and I've been in Norco about 17 years. I'm on Social Security, so I don't make a lot of money, and I get a small military disability pension, which is not a lot of money. My water bills run between, the minimum is $250 to $265, and I got a 600 square foot house with 1 bath and 2 bedrooms. I got a guest house, and they charge me for 2 sewer lines. Now those 2 sewer lines go into one to the street. So I went up to the city hall, and I got this little lady behind the counter, little lady with a big attitude actually, and I don't do well with attitudes, so it didn't go good at all. I asked her, why do I have to pay for 2 sewer lines when it goes into 1 line to the street? She says, well, she says, if you don't like it, we'll just add another sewer line and a meter and you can pay for it. I said, well, I guess you fixed that problem, didn't you? And I walked out. So I don't know how much, I know you have to increase because I'm listening to what this gentleman's saying. And I don't know what you can increase it to as far as I'm concerned, because I can't come up with a whole lot of money when I'm paying a minimum of $250, and there's people in Norco with 2,000 square foot houses that are paying $150. So that's about all I got to say, other than if it goes too much higher, well, I'll either have to move or quit watering everything and take a shower once a year, you know? That's about all I got to say. Thank you very much for listening. Good night.
Thank you. If you would, after the meeting, would you give your name and that information to our Public Works Director, please?
Public Works?
Yeah, right there. Chad.
Oh, sure.
Thank you.
Julie Waltz.
Hi, Julie.
Hi, how are you?
Good to see you.
Good, thank you. Good to see you, too. And Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to you all, too. But I'm a little overwhelmed. The people that spoke before me have pretty much said what I had to say. I mean, there's a lot of people in this town that are on fixed incomes, Social Security only. That's going to be a lot of money to them. I mean, we don't get no raises, no COLAs, no nothing anymore. And people say they're not going to raise our taxes anymore. Well, they find ways to go around it and do it. So we're not paying a higher tax, but we're sure going to pay on this, aren't we? So I would wish you would really take it into consideration and just not even raise the water. People are paying enough, and we can't afford it. I mean, what's the money going to really go to? Is it going to really go to a fund? What kind of fund is it going to go to? It's ludicrous. And furthermore, this shouldn't have even been taking place in December. People are involved in their families and things right now. I bet if it didn't take place, there would be more people out protesting. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Jeff Cahan.
To address, just...
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. I am here this time as a private resident and a ratepayer. I certainly don't want to pay more for my water either. But I understand the structural setup of how the rates have been in the past. And in a nutshell, we've got these fixed costs that we tried to spread across the usage, and because the usage has gone down, the revenue's gone down, and we just can't pay to supply the water. We've got these wonderful people in Sacramento that would rather spend hundreds of billions of dollars trying to get people quickly from Buttonwillow to Turlock rather than build some new reservoirs. The state population has increased probably threefold since the last real reservoir was built. So now we're stuck in these drought situations. And unfortunately, for many years, the rates were working fairly well. But because of the decrease, I completely understand the structural impact. So I'm not really happy about it, but I understand it. So the real question is, and I appreciate the speakers that went before me, could somebody please address, I'm pretty sure we have a fixed income senior assistance plan. So if you could maybe throw out some information on that. But also, I lost where I was going. Anyways, oh, I know the question was, somebody said we can't afford it. I would like you to address what would happen to the city, because I don't think we can afford not to. And I don't know what those implications are if this doesn't pass. What would happen to our water system without that increase? Thank you.
Those will be addressed, Jeff. Thanks.
Mayor, that concludes public comments.
Thank you, Cheryl. Last call before I close the public hearing. I see one hand. Can you give your information to the clerk?
Have it. You can, go ahead.
And afterwards, if you'd give your information to the clerk, please. Okay. Good evening.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and fellow council members. My name is Tamara Mastro, and my husband and I have lived in the city of Norco for the last 23 years, 23 and a half now. And I remember, because I always pay the bills, I remember when the water bill was $44 every other month. Okay. Then they finally changed it to every month, and now my water bill, as of this month, usually ranges from about $157 to this month is $170. With the new proposal, it will go up $82.72 in 5 years. So what's that going to be? Okay, that's going to be like $250, and this gentleman back here is already paying that. What's his going to go up to? And he has a smaller house than I do. I think that definitely our cost of living is not going to go up high enough for us to be able to see this increase. And I really ask you to consider other ways that maybe the city can look at maybe contributing, towards this, if it has to be done in some way. Perhaps even restructuring, looking at overhead, things like that. So I just really would like to ask you to please perhaps wait on the vote, seeing as it is December, only a couple weeks before this is supposed to actually take occurrence. If you would please keep that in mind, and as well, obviously, people who do have fixed incomes and the rest of the city. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Last call. Okay, let's, this gentleman here, and then if you can get your cards in, Norva.
The speaker cards
you can come up first.
I apologize, Mayor. I just want to make a comment that the speaker cards are located on the table outside of the council chamber.
If you have a card, if you'd bring it up to the clerk.
Good evening. Congratulations, new mayor.
Good evening.
Thanks, council, for letting me speak. So I've lived in Norco on and off since I was 7 years old. I've grown up here. Went to Norco High. Now I'm a teacher in the Corona-Norco Unified School District. I pay my water bill. I ripped out my yards 2 years ago when I bought my most current house. Have no front yard, put in all succulents, et cetera, et cetera. I have no grass in my backyard, put DG down. Wonderful, reinstalling some grass, but very minimal compared to what it was. I'm paying about $120, $125 a month without watering anything. I don't see, as the other gentleman said, how we can't raise rates at some point in the future. But just like the other people have said, I want to know what those costs are going to. If the usage is going down, then the facilities, the equipment, the CIP probably aren't getting used as much. So why are the costs staying the same if the usage is going down? If you decrease the costs, then you can draw money from other areas, I believe. And same thing as everybody else has said, what do the new costs entail? What infrastructure needs to be maintained, so on and so forth. How is that going to be maintained? What committee is going to oversee it? And if you have answers for that, I think that's going to take longer than it would in the next 3 weeks before Christmas in order to do the vote on the 1st of the new year. That's something I think that warrants a little bit more closer inspection than the next couple weeks allow. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I have a card from Tom. I can't read the last name. I apologize.
Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Tom Maroney. I've been here 25 years, and I had a business here in town up until about 10 years ago. And I had a trucking company, and I needed a fuel increase. You know what the customers told me? Get creative. Get it from somewhere else. Why isn't you guys looking for somewhere else to subsidize this than the people, to put it on the people's back? I was told that the soccer field over here was the salvation of the city. Going to make the city all kinds of money. Why don't you drag some money from there? Why do we get it from the working man here? I had to get creative. I couldn't get a fuel increase. You shouldn't get an increase. Get creative. Get to other places. There's new businesses coming to town, right? There's new revenue coming from them. What are you doing with the revenue? You got to give yourself raises? Come on, get creative. That's all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Norva Williams.
Good evening.
Good evening, Norva Williams, Norco, a million years. Okay, here's my question. I saw the thing on the meter rates, and my daughter and I were talking today. We live on the same street, have the same house. I have a 3/4 inch meter. She has a 1.5 inch. Why? Is the first question. And then the second question is, why are the rates based on the meter when you're still going to use the same amount of water? So it should be on water usage. What's the size of the meter got to do with it? My questions.
Thank you, Norva.
Linda Dixon.
Hi, Linda.
Good evening. I think that this is, having this type of discussion 2 weeks before the rate increase is scheduled to go into effect, especially at the holiday season, is there's something wrong with that. I think we should have had this discussion maybe beginning in September. I have a question. Does this mean that there will be 2 rate increases next year? One January 1st and one in July? I had discussion with some of my neighbors who are seniors and cannot be here, and I understand there is a senior rate, but it is for low income. And these seniors who live on a fixed income and have worked all their lives with no increase in Social Security in the last few years say they just can't afford anymore. We have one of our residents who is still on septic but charged for sewer, which is standard apparently. So there are things like that going on. I think you have to have a little more research. As Norva said, she and her daughter live next door to each other. They have two different size pipes, which neither one of them requested. And so the daughter's rate is double what Norva's rate is. There's just a lot of questions going on, and I think that this perhaps is a little too soon to move forward with an increase without a lot more investigation. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda.
That's all the cards I have.
I'll go ahead and close the public hearing.
I already spoke.
Okay, thank you.
And I'll ask the, close the public hearing.
I actually just have a numbers question. It's more about breaking down of numbers.
You can reopen it and close it again.
Please.
Okay, my first question is, you came up with $65 on average?
Can you address the council,
Oh,
please?
sorry.
And then
Hello.
the consultant will
My name is
try
Kim.
to
I've
answer that.
lived here
Thank
in
you.
6 years now. First council meeting that I've come to. Yeah, a little disturbed over the numbers that they're proposing right now. First question is, if you do the initial increase in January at 15%, do you do another one in July at 15?
We'll have that addressed for you.
And then my other question was, they said that the average water bill was $65. Where did those numbers come from?
Okay.
That's two. Based on $65, if we increase it at 15%, it'll be $22.50, generating over $2 million in the first year. But that'll actually double to 4.5. So I'm just curious, is there like a thing where I can look at all the numbers? Do you provide that to us? Who do I ask?
Public Works Director.
May I have a copy?
Well,
I just want to look over the numbers. Thanks.
thank you. Okay, very, very last call. I'll close the public hearing again and ask the clerk to give a report on any additional protests received in the final count.
Thank you, Mayor. I received one additional written protest, which brings the total to 686 written protests received.
Thank you, Cheryl. Any comments by the city attorney?
Mayor, excuse me, I'm receiving more.
Protests?
Yes.
Okay.
Will you accept, since the public hearing has been closed?
Yeah, it doesn't.
Okay.
Sure.
So 687 is the total.
Thank you. Pardon?
How do I go down?
Public hearing's closed.
Okay.
No more protests.
Total 687.
Okay. John.
Okay. My comment only is that, as you're aware, the statute, Proposition 218, requires that in the event that there are received 50% plus one of the protests from total parcels, that you may not proceed with the increase. In this case, there are 7,818 parcels and 687 protests, which means, obviously, that's not 50% plus one, and you have jurisdiction to consider the matter and make your decision.
Thank you, John. Any council discussion, questions of either staff or the consultant? Kevin?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll just, a couple of the questions asked. 2 rate increases?
In the next fiscal year?
Yeah.
Yes, there's one rate increase that's effective January 1 to help shore the funds, so we're solid beginning the next fiscal year, and then the next rate increase starts July 1, and they continue every July after that.
So it'll be 2 in 2017?
Correct.
Okay. Where did you get the number 65,000? The $65 rather.
I guess I'll have Dave answer
Yeah,
that.
so the $65, that's just the water bill. And what that represents right now, the fixed charge for a 3/4 inch meter is $20.87. So it's 2087 plus 222 per HCF. So it's 2087 plus 222 times 20. So that's just the water bill. I don't know if there's confusion. If you add in the sewer bill, it's $65 plus $51, so it would be the total.
And this is the average of every residential rooftop in Norco?
That's the average amongst, it's not not the median. It would be the average. So yeah, it would be the average amongst
7,200,
Yep.
how many houses we have.
Yep.
So in other words, every single one of those houses, you averaged out the amounts.
Yes.
Okay. Some of the numbers that, we're not getting any raises. Sorry. We pay for our own phone, our own gas, all that kind of stuff. Thank you, Tom. Appreciate that. That's all I have right now. I'm sure I have other questions, but I'm sure the council will get them.
Ted?
And I don't know if this is an Andy or Chad question. A lot of times, and just so the public understands, the water and sewer fund in the fact that it can only be used for water and sewer. So I don't know if Andy or if Chad, you want to explain that to them, to the water.
Yeah, the water, thank you for the opportunity. The water and sewer funds are enterprise funds, and they, by law, have to be self-sufficient. So you must generate your own revenue to support those activities that are going in the water and the sewer fund. They cannot be subsidized by anything from the general fund. That's why commonly when folks want what we have right now, which is a subsidy or a rate for seniors, that actually is provided or paid for by the general fund. The customer still pays the full amount. The general fund just pays the water fund that subsidy, but it can't come directly by the general fund. They can't take money from what would be from streets or from parks or something like that. We have to provide our own direct revenue and operate that way. And so anything we generate stays in those funds. It cannot go into the general fund to pay for streets, for parks, or anything else.
And then my other question to you, and as being a former member of the Streets and Trails Commission, when we did our water rate increase, when was it done? Other than the pass-through cost that we did last summer, when was the last time we actually had an increase in the water?
I believe it was fiscal year 2011-12.
2011-12 is when the last one happened.
Yeah, July 2012.
July 2012. So the residents have not had an increase since the last time we did it in streets. And prior to that, and Terry's sitting there, he can probably tell you that the increases were never done prior to that because we were playing catch-up back in 2010 when we approved the water increases back then. So I'm just a little history so people would understand that. Thank you.
Kevin?
Just one other question. The question was asked about size of the meter, the line, 3/4 inch, 1 inch. Why is the difference?
Well, as far as the question, as I understood, as far as why one resident has one size line or another, that's really dependent on when the homes were built and what the homeowners asked for. But it's usually based off the demand.
Was why the cost difference?
Yeah, and Dave can respond to that.
Yeah, the reason for that is that it's industry standard to basically, depending upon the size of your meter, dictates the amount of capacity that you can use. You could have an 8-inch meter serving a single-family home, and it's just going to be a trickle through that meter, but that meter has a potential of a tremendous amount of volume. So the city has to be ready for that volume, whether it's used or not. And so that's the purpose. That's why you graduate the meters. It's done all across the country. It's standard. I don't know if there's the ability to change out the meter, but it does encourage the right sizing of meters is another benefit of that, so people don't purchase a meter larger than they need and then you have to reserve capacity that they're not going to use. But that's essentially why, and that's again, the industry standard. It represents the potential capacity because a 1.5-inch meter can draw a lot more water than a 3/4-inch meter. And you don't know what's going on behind that meter. You just know that you have to be available to serve that capacity and have that capacity ready.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Robin?
The other question was asked, why are costs going up when usage is going down? So what are we maintaining, or what are we going to be looking at as far as capital improvement, even though customer usage is going down?
Well, I guess what I'd say is overall, I think there needs to be understanding as far as, in managing any system, whether it's sewer or water, there are significant costs to provide that service to the residents. And in every city, every organization, there are obviously different sizes and different levels of cost. And the most unique thing about Norco is the issue of the fact it's a very small community, and the number of people that you could rely on to pay the bills or divide up that cost. It is half-acre lots or more, so which limits the number of household tops that you could build to that help divide the cost, versus Corona or JCSD. There's a ton of homes in Eastvale, a ton of homes in Yucca Valley that they divide that cost. That's why their costs are lower than us. But the same is since they're and that's cost to the resident, but their overall cost could be even more, but they just have more people divide it from. So as my observations as far as being the director here for a year now, Norco is very unique in that aspect. So we're very limited on the number of people, first and foremost, that could help pay for any increase that occurs. And thus that has a very significant impact when we do propose any increase. It has a much greater impact because there's not enough, there's not more people. Otherwise, the other agencies do have that luxury. Also, we are a very thin organization. I have never been part of an organization that operated on such a thin margin as far as the resources that we have, the equipment that we have. We continually recycle the same broken equipment and fix it at a heavy cost rather than purchasing new equipment. We have very limited staff that are not paid very well, I'll say that bluntly, and do a heck of a lot of work. I have never been part of a crew that does more work with least amount of stuff. I mean, they're amazing, and they don't complain. So number one, I would have to emphasize is that this city gets an amazing amount for the dollar that they pay. With that said, when we have these increases that are occurring, it's because of the fact we have pushed our can down the road when it comes to CIP way too far. We have a significant amount of infrastructure that is dilapidated and breaking on a consistent basis. We are doing so many Band-Aid repairs for water lines in the city, it's ridiculous. And the cost, unfortunately, to replace these aging water lines, a lot of them over 50 years old, is significant. And when you spread that cost of just doing $1 million over a small group of people, everybody gets hit with a big bill. And believe me, we would prefer to do the original recommendation of doing all the CIP that's planned, because that's still just scratching the surface. But we knew that was going to be a very, very tough thing for anybody to swallow, with a bill would be very high. So we said, let's at least do something where we haven't been doing much, and we cut it in half. And that's still lower than I'd like to do and what we need to do. But I think it's the right thing to do right now for the residents, because it is still a significant increase, but it has to be done. So we've cut everywhere we can. We don't have a lot of glutton in our operations. This isn't for high salary staffs. We are trying to improve our maintenance, so we're actually doing more maintenance than we were, so we don't have the bigger issues coming that we've had in the past. So we're investing more of our dollars and time into proper maintenance to make our current infrastructure last longer, but there is a significant amount that needs to be replaced. That is the biggest thing right now that's on this dollar ticket of what we're asking today, is financing CIP. We need to do that on every level. The other side, which has hit us, and it has hit many, many organizations around California, is that the drought was a wake-up call to our financial models that all of us have had. In regards to, for 20, 30 years now, the states have been trying to incentivize folks to conserve. And the only way to really do that is put all your eggs in one basket, which is put it in the commodity rate, so if people reduce, they can control their own bill and lower it, and then they feel good about it. They've conserved, they also lowered their bill. The problem has become, now it's flipped itself over. Now that the drought is here, and it's here to stay for quite a while, unfortunately, until the state does more to retain our resources, get more water from Northern California, is that, and in fact today I was on a conference call with the state because there's a new regulation out where they are going to be basically mandating conservation, and it's not going to be something where somebody has a choice. It's simply going to be a fact of life. And knowing that, a lot of the agencies now recognize that we need to shift our models from where it was they could gain the revenue they needed to cover their fixed costs by people using water. Well, they now need to change their model to be a lot of their costs on fixed costs, so that they get most of that, and then they hope that the water that is used still covers the remaining they didn't cover on the fixed costs. So that's where everything's shifting. That's why we're shifting, because right now for 2 years in a row, because of the drought and because of the reduction in water, that's almost $2 million, $500,000, $2 million a year that we are not covering our fixed costs. So we have to do the change in the structure just to be even. And so that's a significant part of about half of what we're asking in this increase today. The other half is really about, let's get our CIP moving. We need to get on that. And it's not even the margin that we asked for. So trust me when I say I'm very fiscally conservative in everything that I do. I do not like to see waste, and I try to stretch every dollar we can. This proposal is very prudent. It's not something that is palatable by any means, because I understand what it impacts on people and the residents and businesses. But the not doing it, we basically, to answer the question, is we go into default because we can't pay our bills. We're not meeting our debt covenant ratios, which means our current bondholders can basically say our debt is due. And none of that is good, because it ruins our credit rating and our standing in the industry. So this isn't something we want to do, but we have to do. And we've tried to make it as minimal as possible and make the progress we need to do, because my goal as the director is to make sure folks have the services they want when they want, and not continually see the breakage out that they do see in the streets with stuff dilapidated, because these water lines end up damaging the roads, and we all know the roads aren't very good. So it has a cascading effect. If we don't take care of our infrastructure, it causes more damage down the line. And in this case, we're just seeking that the water and sewer funds be self-sufficient, and we move forward with what needs to be done. And so that's just I just want to give you a broad perspective of kind of where we're at and why we need to be and do what we're suggesting to do today.
Thank you, Chad. David, do you have any other comments or answers to some questions that may have been missed?
Closely along those lines, the idea of why costs have stayed the same when usage is going down. And the reality is that approximately about 90% of your costs in the water system are fixed. When you use less water, you still have to pay the same amount for purchased water. You don't get a reduction there. Your debt service remains the same that you have outstanding. So there's very, very little in terms of your budget that goes down when people use less water, which is, the reality. If we were truly doing this from a match the rate structure to the cost, we would have a 90% of our costs would be recovered in that fixed charge. We don't want to do that. That, obviously hurts the person that doesn't use very much. So this is, looking at specific costs and recovering them in the fixed charge. But that's the reality. In terms of the costs going forward, your O&M expenses we're keeping, we're assuming they're going to be very, very flat. Very modest increases in those. As Chad alluded to, it's really fixing the gap that's there now because people have used less water, and then it's starting to fund the CIP. And those are the primary reasons.
Thank you. One second. Andy, did you wish to make any comments, or do you think everything's been covered?
I think all has been covered. Clearly, one of the other things maybe. I'm sorry. We would like to expand on the discussion regarding utility assistance program, which is for those that are on fixed or low income.
Yes, I have some documents out on the table for you, and basically we passed this a few weeks ago. It was a change in our housing utility assistance program. It's actually funded not by the general fund, but the housing ex-redevelopment funds that we have remaining. The change to the plan, to the program that was adopted a few weeks ago, is the water rate will be for a senior or for an individual that has a specified level of income, 50% of the regular potable water rate for the first 20 units, or 14,960 gallons of water used monthly, and a 50% discount on the meter fixed rate up to 1-inch meter. So it's a change there. Originally it was a flat rate. We're going to a percentage rate. And the sewer rate will be a 50% discount of the regular rate for all sewer charges, including non-connect. And this would be adopted as a result of tonight's action for those going forward, and it would be looked at on an annual basis. So this is a a change to our existing program from a flat rate to a percentage rate. And it's available, and there's forms and a phone number on the table outside if anybody has any questions.
Thank you, Gina.
Yeah, let me also address one item that came up during the discussion. I think one of the residents made a comment with respect to the money that was invested to fund infrastructure at Civilex, which is described as soccer fields. Yes, the city did provide some infrastructure financing to Civilex for water and sewer line improvement on the project. As you know, the city owns that property and would have been required to provide the infrastructure necessary before the property is leased to the operator. Even though the city is required to do those improvements, Civilex is actually making the payment back to the city for that infrastructure financing that was provided to Civilex. And that money that is being paid back to the city goes directly into the water and sewer fund. So in essence, the water fund is actually the water and sewer fund both benefiting from that transaction, so it's not actually negatively impacting the water or the sewer fund.
Ted, you had another question?
No, I think,
Comment?
yeah, and Dennis answered it well when we had our study session, so I just want to bring it up. When we talked about this before, the question came up because of the animal keeping, is how it would affect, and I think, Dennis, you can answer that better than I do, how the rate structure will actually help the people more on the animal keeping than our current structure, if you can answer that for him.
David.
No, that's fine.
I'm looking for Dennis.
Yeah, I mean, the reason 20 HCF is actually pretty high when you look national usage, and part of that is the fact that you have animal keeping here and they use a fair amount of water. So with the restructuring of the rates, it does have a kind of an across-the-board increase in terms of the impacts to those that have animals and those that have used higher quantities of water. We are recovering more in the fixed charge, a little bit less in the usage charge, and therefore those that use greater quantities of water aren't hit like they would if you were to put it all on the commodity rate. If you were to put this all on the commodity rate, you would shift to a situation where they would be paying a tremendous amount to the point where they may actually reduce their usage even more, and you can get into a circular trap where you can never get out of. I've seen that happen in communities, so it is another benefit of having that fixed revenue be a higher percentage. But those with higher usage because of animal keeping aren't impacted adversely or any more than somebody that doesn't use quite as much. No problem.
Thank you, Dave. Kevin, anything else?
A couple things. In terms of Silver Lakes, the be-all, end-all, I understand Tom's point, but the point is it takes time. It's attracting hotels. It's doing a lot of things that will bring benefit down the line to the city. It's kind of like when you build a business, it takes a while for that to happen. Nevertheless, we're being paid about $80,000 a month from that endeavor, $36,000 of which is a lease payment. And it's proprietary, so we can't really tell you what some of the higher sales tax generators are giving us, but that is very competitive to those amounts per month.
Kevin, let's keep it.
Yeah. You know what? If you have a question, I'll be happy to talk to you afterwards. So really what we're trying to do here is we're trying to flip the costs. One of the things that I think needs to be brought up is when we compare our water rates to the water rates of, say, Eastvale, Yurupa Valley, one of the things we're trying to protect is we have roughly 7,000 rooftops in the city of Norco. So like on my street between 5th and 6th, I have about 40 houses. If I were in Eastvale, I'd have 90 houses. The problem is I still got pipes, same amount of pipe that's going down that. And one of the things we're trying to do is we're trying to preserve a lifestyle. Now, I can remember a couple years ago, somebody ran and said, you know what, to raise money, let's put in more houses. We're the last city in the state of California by law as a city that we have half-acre or more large lots. So while we're, in a way, we might be paying more than some of the cities, the truth of the matter is they're paying a lot more because they're paying the equivalent to us, but they've got 90 houses on that street. One of the other things, to sort of tag team off, forgive my cold, I apologize. We have 15 employees that do public works. 12. We're 15 square miles, that's less than one employee per acre. One of the problems we have is the state of California. They are requiring our employees to have certain certificates, certain skill sets. The minute they get the skill set, they're gone. Why wouldn't they? They get a lot more money somewhere else. That's a problem we're going to have to be facing. I mean, one employee for every acre and whatever it is, or every square mile rather, is not a lot of employees. So we're either going to try to protect those large lots or not. Now, one of the things I have done is with the seniors, I've been to just under 100 places where seniors are struggling with their water rates. Every one of them had leaks. Every one of them. And so I was able to really significantly sometimes get their leaks down. One of the other things is a town our size, we are entering an era in California when we have a supermajority. A supermajority of people that love conservation, love wind things, love solar panels, they love all that stuff. And they don't want this city to exist. Their idea is that what you do is you put a whole bunch of houses in the middle of an urban area so that you can save the rural areas and you're not having urban growth into the suburbs. Well, what do you do with Norco? What do you do with this? Right now, there's a law in the books that they want to put houses in our backyards, which means we have no half-acre, we have no zoning. So above us, we have this whole bureaucracy that we are constantly fighting. One of the other things, if you've taken a water tour, the cost of delivering water to us, it's not fair. I'm going to tell you right now, you guys did a great job. Norco, in just a couple of months, you cut 30% out of your water costs. Fantastic. But the problem is that we still have fixed costs above us. And I'm going to tell you right now, like it or not, they're not very good stewards of that water above us. You ever heard of the smelt, the Delta smelt? I mean, there's a lot of problems, but we can't do anything about that. Part of that is because of the way we vote in mass. We tend to be a very conservative community. The supermajority is very liberal. Guess what? I can remember when Gray Davis used to write, every time he saw Norco, he did a red line right through Norco whenever we asked for something. That is a grown-up reality that is really hard for me to take, but we have to deal with it. The reservoir, very good point. One of the things when I first got on council that was so frustrating is they hadn't raised water rates in years. And even that was a 4-1 vote. The city of Norco, in terms of mismanaging, misspending, hey, when I got on council, we had $65,000 in the bank. I mean, we went from over 100 employees to 48 in a year. And one of the things that's really frustrating is, especially in public works, they have a lot of work that they have to do, and the equipment is falling apart. And it's frustrating because they get frustrated too. I mean, how many times, Terry, do you have your equipment break down and the guys are standing there, and then I get a call saying they're just standing around? Guess what? The equipment doesn't work. So, anyway, for me, what's happening now is we're actually going on a more even keel. We're going from the fixed charge to the uniform usage rate. We're swapping it so that in the long term, we're going to be able to fund our water resources. And at the same time, it also funds more alternatives to bringing water to the community. That's all I have to say, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Robin, anything else?
I agree with what Kevin said, and I think one more point that needs to be made from my perspective. There's so many things that have been kicked down the road or pushed off or passed down because the decisions aren't easy. And as elected officials, or in my opinion, sometimes, a lot of the times, the case has been lately, the right decision isn't necessarily always the easiest decision to make. And a lot of pressure is put on your elected officials in that manner. And I know for a fact that all of us are up here to do the right thing for the residents, not just right now, but the residents 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 15 years from now. In my opinion, that hasn't been a priority for past councils. It's been what's been easy to do, what maybe hasn't had the most amount of forethought or looking ahead into the future. And the fact is, we need to put more thought into the decisions we're making right now. How is that going to affect the next council and the people sitting in these chairs and the decisions they have to make? I hope as I sit here, the decisions that are made make the job easier for the person that's sitting here after me. This has not been an easy spot to sit in. And so I know we need to be responsible to the residents and the decisions we make, and with the information that's presented to us, to do what's in the best interest of all the residents and in the interest of our staff. I think you've heard it several times, they're bare bones. They work so hard and again, catch a lot of flack that's really not due to them. When I met with Andy about this issue, going over the limited amount of staff, they're not paid adequately. All of these things add up. And if we don't take care of the health of our organization, which is our city staff, you think things are bad now, wait until you have disgruntled and unhappy staff and people that can't do their job because we, the leadership, haven't given them the tools. It's like we're asking them to go out and dig a hole with their bare hands instead of giving them the shovel. We need to give our staff the tools and equipment that they need. That is part of our job as the leadership, and it's part of our responsibility. So everything that Kevin said is true. I just want the residents to understand there's this bigger picture. And I understand $13 for some people is $13 they don't have. When we talked about this back in, I think we started the process in September or October, one of the first things that came from this council is what are we going to do for the people on fixed incomes? And it's not just about seniors, folks. There are a lot of people that are on low income that are not seniors in this town that need the income assistance. So please know, it's not about seniors. There are a high population of seniors that are on fixed income, but we have a lot of low-income folks in this town too. All of those people will be served by this program if they sign up. So please know we don't take decisions like this lightly. There's been several meetings with staff and discussions, and we need to make decisions that are fiscally responsible and responsible to our organization as well, that serves the whole community.
Thank you, Robin. If nothing else, no other comments, I'll entertain a motion. Staff recommends that the City Council open the public hearing, take comments, and at the end of the public hearing, adopt Resolution 2016-65, adopting proposed adjustments to water and sewer rates and drought surcharge rates.
I move to approve Resolution 2016-65 as stated. Second.
Councilmember Bash, Councilmember Grunmeyer, Mayor Pro Tem Hoffman, Mayor Newton.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Resolution 2016-65 adopted. Let's go ahead and take a short 5, no more than 10-minute break. Bring the council meeting back to order. Continuing with public hearings, item 5B, ordinance number 1011. Chief. Good evening.
Mr. Member, member of council, Deputy Fire Marshal Kevin Reinertson is going to present this item.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. Congratulations. I'm going to give a quick 30,000-foot overview of the rulemaking package you have before you. This package here is consistent with 20 other partner cities that we have throughout Riverside County and the unincorporated part of Riverside County. Some of our major objectives were to remove or repeal quite a few of the amendments in the package, so quite a few of those are gone, mostly because they were either picked up by the national codes or the California State Fire Marshal's Office picked those up as their own amendments, and they become effective statewide. We're adding 2 new items. One of them is automatic gate openers for gated communities or larger commercial projects. We are not going to apply these provisions to 1- and 2-family dwelling parcels. The cost of these are approximately $2,500. So if you had a gated community of 100, it's $25 a lot. And there's 2 different, it's not a proprietary type system. There's 2 different systems that are used by Riverside County Fire. It's Tomar and Opticom. Opticom being the higher priced one, so that was the number I put out there, and that's the installed cost. The other amendments that we're making that are new are they're actually exemptions. We're giving exemptions for fire sprinklers to certain types of accessory structures you would find equestrian facilities. You have a covered, non-combustible covered area for equestrian. Right now, the current code requires sprinklers for those, but the all reality is that they probably wouldn't activate because of their height, and there's no fuel load below, so we're giving exemptions to those, as well as some agricultural type buildings, livestock buildings, and other miscellaneous structures under 5,500 square feet, unless the state code itself specifically required it. Did a lot of coordination, restructuring. If you look at your package and you see a lot of strikeout in there, some of it had to do with reformatting, so a lot of those were just maintained, and I'm here for any questions.
Any questions by council? Well, I have a question on the automatic opener, on that, as far as with gated communities, that are you getting away like from the Knox openers?
No, those would typically still be there as a backup. But the automatic opener is it's based on the frequency of the strobes. So as the emergency vehicles are approaching, they'll open up. It actually provides a great benefit on several levels. One, it gets us to wherever the issue is quicker. The other is it keeps our firefighters from being in danger parking out on the street and having incidences.
And then you're not looking for keys either.
Right.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I do have a question.
Yeah, Kevin.
So Clark Terrace, they have an automatic opener. Does that already have that system?
Yes.
That's the only one I can think of. Do we have another gated community somewhere?
No, not one that I can think of in the city.
Well, the big one on 5th Street.
So we just proved the point that government creates ordinances for nothing.
This one here is a consistency thing. We're one fire department throughout.
Oh, wait, we have a second gated community. Very high end. It's got Art Deco building. It's nice. It's called California Rehabilitation Center. I'm sure they don't have.
Nice.
Any other questions? Ted? Okay, Robin? Okay.
Was that a name thing?
It may have been. Thank you. I'll go ahead and take a recommendation to adopt ordinance number 1011, first reading.
Motion to adopt.
Second.
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Norco, California, replacing Title 15, Chapter 15.09 of the Norco Municipal Code.
Councilmember Bash?
Yes.
Councilmember Gunmeyer? Mayor Pro Tem Hoffman?
Yes.
Mayor Newton?
Yes.
That motion carries.
Thank you. Now move to item 6A.
Yes.
Andy.
Yes, let me make a couple of comments before I turn it over to Art Garcia. If you remember, back in July, several residents came before you and they had several complaints with respect to illegal use of fireworks. Okay, I'm sorry. Last July, several residents came before the City Council and complained about issues related to illegal use of fireworks in the city. And as a result of those complaints, I convened a group of that is consisted of representations from the fire department, the police department, a couple of city council members, as well as staff, to look at the issues that were brought to the attention of the city council, research the issues, identify best practices, what are other cities doing with respect to addressing these issues, and come up with recommendations to help us do public education as well as improve our enforcement on the illegal use of fireworks in the city of Norco. What you have before you tonight is Art Garcia, who has helped us all in trying to research this issue, will present you his findings with respect to what the issues are, the recommended public education as well as recommended enforcement to address the issues. Art?
Good evening.
Good evening. Congratulations, Mayor Newton, and good evening, Council. So I'm here to present a fireworks summary, just of what the challenges and solutions that we came up with. The team that Andy had mentioned, based of Riverside County Sheriff Department, CAL FIRE, some elected officials, and officials from City Hall. It was at the July 6th City Council meeting. It was actually my first City Council meeting before I started working for the City of Norco. Several residents expressed their displeasure towards illegal fireworks usage in the city. One resident had claimed a firework had went off 20 feet from his residence, and another resident had complained that his horses were startled all night as a result of fireworks. And the city manager asked me to research what other cities were doing and to come up with an enforcement and public education strategy to discourage residents from using illegal fireworks. Now, there's two classified types of fireworks, and the first one being safe and sane fireworks. According to the fire marshal, any fireworks which do not come within the definition of dangerous are considered safe and sane. And safe and sane fireworks are those that contain the seal down the lower right corner. And they're typically the ones that are bought in other counties, like San Bernardino County or Los Angeles County, and those fireworks stand in the picture you see right there. In Riverside County, fireworks are illegal, but they do travel to other counties to purchase these fireworks and light them up in Riverside County and the City of Norco. Each package has a safe and sane mark on the lower corner. Those are illegal in Norco. That's the first type of illegal fireworks. The second are dangerous fireworks. Examples of dangerous fireworks include firecrackers, skyrockets, Roman candles, sparklers that are longer than 10 inches, and torpedoes, and fireworks that contain certain elements defined by the fire marshal. M80s are not classified as fireworks. They're classified as explosives, so they don't fall under this dangerous category, but they're still a big problem here in the city of Norco. And in the city, the municipal code chapter 9.20 prohibits all fireworks, and violators and or property owners will be cited $500 for the safe and sane and $1,000 for dangerous fireworks. In the chart, I have the calls for service along with neighboring cities. In 2016, Norco received 39 calls for service. 2015, 36. 2014 received 19 calls for service, and 2013 received 32 calls for service. And this last 4th of July weekend, from July 1st to July 6th, we received the animal control. They had 27 stray dogs. Usually during fireworks, that's the most stressful time for animals. And Norco being Horsetown, USA, there's a lot of large animals and small pets who all get startled by these fireworks, illegal fireworks. And there was 7 stray cats. Now, I researched what other cities were doing. Other cities were doing city-sponsored permitted fireworks show. Like the city of Riverside had their own fireworks show. Hooper Valley, on the city of Riverside had 2 on the 3rd and the 4th consecutively. And other cities were using signs to get the information that fireworks were illegal to the residents. Signs like in parks, public buildings like City Hall. Some cities gave out yard signs to the residents and utilized traffic signs. Other cities utilized volunteer involvement, like the CERT program, the Community Emergency Response Team, where the CERT volunteers would go out and patrol and report any illegal fireworks use. And other cities also use Citizens on Patrol. Other cities also increase the number of officials who can cite, like code enforcement or animal control officers and CAL FIRE officials, to issue administrative citations to property owners. And one city even used drones to identify where illegal fireworks were taking place. And on September 15th, that's when we met with CAL FIRE, Riverside County Sheriff's Department, and officials from City Hall and elected officials. I gave a presentation regarding my findings and what I came up with, and the group addressed challenges and proposed solutions to prevent fireworks. Some of the significant challenges were unpredictability. Although you can identify some hotspots from the previous year, you still don't know for sure where fireworks are going to take place. And another big problem was residents calling about another city's permitted fireworks show that utilizes a lot of resources that we have here in the city, and they contribute to those 39 calls for services. And another significant challenge was by the time the field deputy receives a call that the fireworks were in a specific location, the fireworks are already done and it's already over, and there's no evidence of the fireworks taking place. There's a lot of variables that go into the time a resident calls and the time that the deputy receives a call. It could take a significant amount of time by the time the deputy receives a call, and by that time the fireworks are already done. Another challenge was the limited resources, and that these fireworks go on for several days, not just on 4th of July, but this past 4th of July was on a weekend, so they're taking place throughout the whole week. So we came up with a 2-prong enforcement strategy. The first being public awareness and education. The city wants to emphasize and stress a zero tolerance policy and really emphasize the fines, the $500 and the $1,000 for safe, insane, and dangerous fireworks respectively. And one way that we're going to distribute that information is through the website, through weekly highlights, the press release, and information on other cities' permitted fireworks show. On the weekly highlights, we'll stress will stress the fine, because although many residents know that fireworks are illegal, they may not be aware of the fine, the $500 fine that they'll have to pay, administrative citation, and that property owners are held accountable to pay for that fine, not just the person who lit the firework. So that information will be in the weekly highlights for several weeks, all relevant penal codes, and just really try to discourage residents by hitting them with the administrative citation. And that'll be in press release also. Another thing, social media, Facebook and Twitter. That information, all the relevant firework information, like the fines and penal code, will go on Facebook and Twitter, and we'll really stress within that month prior the zero tolerance policy to try to discourage residents, really stress and emphasize the fine amounts, and give the residents the resource of other cities' fireworks shows, specifically for 4th of July, not New Year's, because other cities usually have a large event for 4th of July, and we want to encourage residents to, instead of using illegal fireworks in the city of Norco, to utilize that resource in another city and enjoy the fireworks show and still have a good time during 4th of July. So that resource will be provided to the residents on the website, weekly highlights, Twitter. Again, the penal codes, not only for fireworks, but for M80s, because that was another problem. And lastly, signs, banners, and direct mailing. There will be a flyer that was going out or has been out. That'll be sent 1 month prior to all the residents. And the second problem will be enforcement. There will be additional patrol during the night of New Year's and 4th of July. It will be made up of CAL FIRE, Sheriff's Department, the SET team, and code compliance. The enforcement team will meet prior to any event that they're going to patrol, and they'll establish the most efficient enforcement plan that will detail patrol routes and areas, like hotspots, common communication methods, and investigative strategies such as Craigslist sales and preemptive strategies. All enforcement officials will have the authority to issue an administrative citation to the property owner if it has been determined that there were fireworks lit on the property. And this is an example of the flyer that will be mailed out to the residents. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Arturo. Good report. Questions, council? Kevin.
Is that your first report?
What was that?
Is that your first report?
No.
No? You did another one before? What was the other one?
This one, or at City Council, this is my first time. Yeah.
That's what I meant.
Yeah.
Well done. Good job.
Thank you.
I have I'm sorry, go ahead, Ted.
Yeah, Mayor, let me get my 2 cents in there. And being on the fireworks committee, one of the things, and we stress, and this is something that's very important, so people understand that the only way you could curtail the illegal activities, for some reason, and people just don't understand, not because it's not safe, you have to enforce the fine, and make the fine substantial so they understand that. You know, you can take them to court, you can give them a citation, the judge says, don't do that anymore, don't do that anymore. But bottom line, it's an administrative site that we worked out, and it costs the homeowner money. And we all went through the last 4th of July, and I'm glad we got together, and we're going to try to curtail it. Hopefully, over New Year's Eve, people will get the idea that we're not playing games anymore. The fact that we still are in a dry area, the fire potential is still there. We still active animal keeping. We don't need that. Frankie doesn't want to have all those stray animals coming back to the shelter. So I'm glad, and I agree, and I applaud you for putting this together and doing a good job on this presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Robin?
I just had a quick question. What if the homeowner's not home, or how does that citation process work?
If someone would light a firework in a property, I believe the administrative citation can be mailed to the property owner.
Perfect. Thank you.
I just had just one comment, good report, but on the flyer where it says we're going to have additional patrol during the night of 4th of July to enforce this policy, could we also add to that New Year's Eve?
Yes.
Because right above it, it says, don't ruin your New Year's Eve celebration with a citation.
I have three different flyers.
Okay.
One is for New Year's, one is for 4th of July,
okay,
and one is neutral. It just says, don't ruin your celebration.
All right. Okay. Whether we have additional enforcement on that holiday or not. So I guess my next question for Eric, this financial impact, that's for that one evening for overall 6 hours?
Yeah, good evening, Honorable Mayor. Yes, so what we look at is, in order for us to be able to handle the fireworks calls, our regular patrol deputies are handling life emergency issues, and we wanted to take the fireworks calls off the backs of them so they can still provide service to the community, whether it be traffic accidents, domestic violence calls, burglaries, whatever comes up during their shift. So we are working toward, and we're still working on this, getting a group, and we've done this in the years past. In the last 2 years I've been here, we've done this, is we get deputies on an overtime basis, and we have to fund those positions in order for them to be here because it's on overtime. And so they're taking the majority, they're watching out for the fireworks calls, and they're handling those investigations, while the other patrol deputies are able to focus on the calls for service that come up during the night. So we're bifurcating it. Okay. And so we're hoping, and like I said, everything that, in Arturo did a really good job. Everything that he's mentioned, we've done on a limited scale within our own resources from the Norco Sheriff's Office. And now what we're looking at doing, based on our after actions from the 2 previous years, is trying to expand those resources so we can try and be more effective. And what I think is really key that Arturo brought up are those challenges are all still very, very valid. In terms, even with expanding our resources, those still remain.
Now, would we be in place for this coming New Year's?
Yes, we are planning on implementing this New Year's Eve.
Right. And that would also include because I remember the earlier discussions in the summer that with CAL FIRE, you almost have to reserve the CAL FIRE peace officer.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we have, through the Sheriff's Department support, we have secured special officers, law enforcement officers through CAL FIRE that will be here to assist us that evening.
Great. Good report. Thank you. Good job. Recommendation on this action is receive and file. Yes. Are there any cards?
No cards for this item.
This is a business item.
I move to approve it and receive and file. And one question on that, though. Do we have to approve the expenditure? Is that?
No, that's within the budget limit.
Okay, that's all I needed to know. Thank you.
Councilmember Bash? Yes. Councilmember Grunmeyer? Yes. Mayor Pro Tem Hoffman? Yes. Mayor Newton?
Yes.
That motion carries.
Thank you. Item 6B. This is appointments to the Economic Development Advisory Council to fill 3 vacancies. Who would like to give this report? Cheryl?
Yes, thank you. Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council, this item is a consideration of 3 appointments to the Economic Development Advisory Council. And so there are the 3 vacancies. Earlier in the year, in April, we received a letter of resignation from former member Ed Dixon, which led us into the recruitment process. On June 15th, 2016, the City Council considered appointments to various commissions as well as EDAC. An appointment was not made at that time for EDAC. Subsequently, at its August 3rd meeting, the City Council considered organizational modifications to EDAC, which included maintaining the composition of its members, but removing the 2 City Council member appointees, which there resulted in the 2 additional unscheduled vacancies. Listed there are just the basic requirements to serve on EDAC. Be a citizen of the United States, be at least 18 years of age, take an oath of office, and have never been convicted of a felony. Also for EDAC, some of the requirements include that the new EDAC appointees be selected from the business community. They're not required to live in Norco, but should have a significant stake in the success of the business community. With the organizational modifications that took place back in August, there are 3 detailed points regarding the requirements there. Members should have at least, or should have a current ownership interest in an active business in Norco, or hold a management level position, be an employee of an active business in Norco, or must be a Norco resident with valuable expertise in a relevant economic development discipline, such as marketing, retail, that sort of thing. So that is also, that point there is limited to 2 members on EDAC at any given time. So as a result of the 3 unscheduled vacancies, the City Clerk's office began the recruitment process. We released a public notice on September 19th. The notice was published, sent to the paper. It was also published on the city's website, noted many times on the in the weekly highlights on Facebook and through email notifications to residents. Also, the city manager, economic development consultant, and EDAC members participated in community outreach for recruitment. The city clerk's office had an application deadline of November 28th. So at that time, we received a total of 8 applications. Listed there are the applicants, and the applicants were notified of this meeting and were encouraged to reach out to the city council members and attend tonight. I do have some cards from some of the speakers. I want to note that Mr. Michael Kale could not make it tonight due to a conflict in his schedule. So before you is a copy of the email that he sent to you listing some of his qualifications. Otherwise, like I said, I do have some speaker cards. I believe some of the applicants would like to speak. The recommendation is to appoint 3 members to EDAC. Are there any questions? Speakers? Okay, the first one I have is Pat Whitaker.
Given the lateness of the hour, I'll be very brief. My name is Patricia Whitaker, and I was very pleased to be able to submit an application to join the Advisory Council. My background is 30 years in government as an executive director, community development agency, which included economic development, workforce investment board bids, downtown development strategies, train stations for the city of Santa Ana, the county seat for Orange County. So I also worked in redevelopment and unraveling redevelopment, which has impacted most cities. In addition to that, I'm the director of a development company that also includes mixed-use development and incubator centers and job training. As of 3 o'clock today, I'm also a property owner in the city of Norco. I closed on my home over on Sedona Lane. So the water discussions were very interesting to me as well. So if you have questions, I'm happy to answer them. I look forward to providing services to the council and to the residents of Norco, either through this advisory council or others in the future. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Any questions? Thank you, Pat.
Maria Burns.
Good evening.
Evening. Thank you, and congratulations, Mayor Newton.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to take the opportunity to give you a little bit of background about myself and explain why I'm interested in volunteering for the Economic Development Advisory Council. My name is Maria Burns. I moved to Norco in July from Rancho Cucamonga, so I haven't been here very long. And apart from my close encounter with coyotes yesterday morning, I'm thoroughly enjoying it. It's a really unique, interesting city, and I appreciate the small town atmosphere. So with regard to my professional background, I've been selling ingredients to the food industry for 15 years. I currently work for a global company, but my territory is on the West Coast. In addition, I am the co-owner of an electrical contracting company, which is currently in Rancho Cucamonga, but our plan is to relocate to Norco when the lease is up there. So what I think I can offer the Economic Development Advisory Council is just my business experience with forecasting, budgeting, and increasing sales revenue. One other area that I volunteer time in is for SoCal Dock Dogs, which I think has some interesting synergies with Horsetown USA and everything that you do here. So for sports complexes, for businesses, some of the Dock Dogs functions, they do 3-day events and bring in people from other states. And so it would bring in people and revenue for that as well. I'm the treasurer for them. So thank you. Appreciate your consideration, and look forward to working with, hopefully, the council. So thanks.
Thank you, Maria.
Ashley Etchison.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and Council. Thank you for giving the opportunity to briefly discuss my qualifications for the Economic Development Advisory Council appointment. My name is Ashley Etchison. I'm the Apprenticeship Director for Career and Technical Education at Norco College and a 9-year Norco resident. A brief background about myself: I hold an associate's degree, bachelor's, and a master's in organizational leadership. I strongly, strongly believe in community and giving back and doing your part, especially in this town where that's so important. It really does take a village. In that sense, I do serve on quite a few committees, and I'm very proud to serve as board member for the Norco Area Chamber of Commerce, focusing my time and effort to support and promote our local businesses. I sit on our college's Business and Facilities Planning Council and the CNUSD Communications Advisory Council, as well as other committees within our city, our school districts, and at the college. In my role at the college, I export the expansion of apprenticeship and career opportunities in the region by partnering with education and industry representatives to develop skills-focused career programs and provide opportunities for our students. I also have the immense pleasure of serving as a part-time faculty member at the college, teaching our work experience program. I've worked in workforce development for 9 years and spent most of that time working directly with industry. I understand the needs of industry when looking for a prepared workforce and am proud to work for a college that develops programs for those needs. Norco College directly and indirectly supports our local economy. Daily, thousands of students attend our campus and shop locally for food, gas, and other necessities. We are educating a local community to earn certificates and degrees that positively affect their earning power. Strategies and initiatives that strengthen the connections between college and businesses can significantly affect career success for both the individuals and for our community. Strengthening these relationships also helps our economy by allowing residents to live and work in the same area. This means more dollars spent at local businesses. Norco College actively responds to the needs of industry by creating programs to meet the ever-changing, demanding needs of the workplace. We have over 10,000 students across our campus each semester, creating a local source of employment for current and potential businesses. Higher education is an important consideration for companies who decide to locate their operations to Norco. Employers are looking for a community that provides qualified workers to fill career and technical positions and workforce solutions to help train staff members who are already in place. In my role, I've been able to actually give presentations to businesses that are looking to move their companies to our local surrounding communities. So in conclusion, I have 9 years of experience in the field of workforce development at the county and community college levels. I keep up to date with local and regional employment trends as well as the ever-changing needs of our local workforce, and honestly, I just want to serve the community that I love. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you.
Tina Gregory.
Hi, Tina.
Hi, good
How are you?
evening. Good evening, Mayor. Congratulations, Mayor Newton, City Council and staff. I've been here before on this topic, and I have to say it's really great to see so many pretty amazing candidates that are stepping up. So I did want to apply one more time. I certainly applied with the hope of being appointed last time, and I just wanted to show that my desire is very genuine. So I'm going to go for it again. So I am Tina Gregory. I am a Norco resident. I've lived here for 7 years. My education background, I have a Bachelor of Science degree in paralegal studies. I actually, from college, I entered into the travel and tourism industry as an executive assistant for a global tour operator who is in the middle of an acquisition and merger of business operations for two tour operators in California. So I started in that industry as sort of a fluke and ended up spending the rest of my adult career in travel and tour operator types of businesses. So I have experience from a hospitality and destination standpoint with hotels, airlines, ground service contracts. I have experience in marketing and sales and also product and destination development. In 2000, I joined Disney Theme Parks and Resorts Technology, where I have served in various roles related to travel, hospitality, lodging, event planning, projects, and systems. In addition to my career in the hospitality and tourism sector, I also have my own company that I started in 2014. It's called TL Gregory Works, and this was put together as a company specializing in invention concepts, designs, and licensing. Essentially, I just had an idea for a product when I was traveling a lot for work, and I started just doing some research and having fun with learning how to bring a product to market. So in 2014, I actually was able to pull together a concept. I went through the patent process on my own. I did my own marketing, and ultimately, I went to try to present the product at some trade shows, and I was awarded with the Invention Innovation Award by the United Inventors Association. My design was then featured on the San Diego Morning News, as well as a segment on the nationally televised Today Show. So I'm really big on small ideas and doing really fun, amazing things with it. And I'll tell you, it was one of the best experiences of my life. What I'd really like to do is take that same sort of energy, use the background that I have in tour destination sales, and I think that I am uniquely qualified as it relates to destination and Disney's vision, but Norco's vision as a destination. So I thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Tina.
Mayor, that's all the cards I have.
Are there any other applicants that'd like to speak? Mr. Barreto?
Hello, congratulations. I started my journey here, life in 1964, and started my business in 1987, and have been involved in certain things in the community here for many years, and like to promote working together and figure out ways that we can use some common sense and get some things going. So that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. Good evening.
James Benores. So I've been in Norco for about 20 years, commercial property owner, and my wife and I, we bought a business in Norco about 1.5 years ago, a fitness studio. And I was going to talk about myself, but I wanted to make a comment about what I heard tonight after the water issue, how it was such the water rates. One thing that I've noticed the past 20 years, and especially up until tonight, actually, with all of you, is to attract business, I think, to Norco. We need more of something that Public Works Director, I didn't get your name. When you spoke earlier, Mr. Nash, when you spoke, and Councilmember Grinmeyer when she spoke, when you spoke honestly and kind of promoting a buy-in of the idea, I haven't seen that in 20 years in Norco from anybody. And I think that's why business doesn't come here like they should. My wife, when we were debating buying the business, she didn't want to come. But I convinced her because it's a great place, it's a good city, and I've noticed things lately in the past, ever since Silver Lakes was built, that I like and I'd like to help with. Thank you.
Thank you. I got 5.
Well, I have ballots if you'd like to proceed with voting or discussion.
Does council have any other questions of any of the applicants? Kevin, go ahead and comment now. I think I know what you're going to say. No.
Really good pool of applicants. Unfortunately, there's only 3 spots. Please keep applying. Every one of us up here has applied for a commission and not been selected. So please keep coming back. That's all.
If you would pass out the ballot, Cheryl.
A majority is required for an applicant to be appointed.
Well, the only thing I can say is good luck to you all. I wish we had 8 vacancies, because you're all very, very well qualified.
Mayor, the votes are counted, if I can report. So again, a majority of the city council votes are required to appoint an applicant. So we have appointed Antonio Barreto, received 4 votes. Ashley Etchison received 4, and Chris Muller received 3. So those are our 3 appointees. Congratulations.
Item number 7, City Council, City Manager, Staff Communications. Robin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to move that we agendize coming up with protocols and procedures for evaluation processes for the city attorney and city manager for a future meeting, please.
Does that take a motion?
I don't know.
If you want to agendize it, discuss it here, it does, yes.
Second. Thank you, Kevin.
Councilmember Bash. Councilmember Gunmeyer. Mayor Pro Tem Hoffman.
Yes.
Mayor Newton.
Yes.
That motion carries.
Robin, anything else?
No.
Ted?
I have 2 items, Mr. Mayor. I just saw this in the paper today, and we all know about the tragedy up in Oakland, and today's paper it brought out how to stop Oakland level tragedy from happening here. It was in the Riverside section of the Press Enterprise. And this brings back my theory of we have a lot of accessory buildings in town, and some of them are very large, and they have not been inspected other than the self-inspection. What I'm going to ask is that we have a moratorium on any more accessory building applications until we complete an inspection of the ones we currently have to ensure they're in compliance with the CUPs as they were issued. So I'm asking that to be agendized so we can bring it back.
John, do you have a comment on that?
The only comment is, do you want to have agendized, which this makes the most sense to me, the potential for immediately imposing the moratorium that would appear on the next agenda? I mean, that's the agenda item you'd like agendized?
Yes, and do I have to make a second one on the inspection of those currently, or? We need to get.
No, because that's going to be in the context.
Okay.
For city attorney's clarification, clarification from the city attorney, and that is, do we have the ability to inspect those that are currently in existence?
I mean, Steve has some input, but there's no clear-cut answer. To the extent that there are those that were built that have a CUP, there may be provisions in the CUP which allow inspections. Those that weren't, probably not, so the inspection is going to be voluntary. If there's a refusal to have a voluntary inspection, and we have some basis to be concerned that they're not complying with the requirements of their accessory building, we can seek an inspection warrant.
So I'm still under the discussion on this. This almost seems like 2 items that you're asking for, is to agendize a moratorium on all applications that are in the pipeline for accessory buildings, and then second is a separate item to look at existing accessory buildings with conditional use permits.
That's what I'm asking, so make sure they're in
verify that they are following the conditions of approval.
Correct.
It is essentially 2 different subjects, and the statutory authority for imposing a moratorium is essentially to study the restrictions and rules and regulations with regard to that use. And in Ted's context, the part of that will be apparently looking at what the existing uses and the ability to inspect the current accessory buildings are.
if this was to be agendized, you'll provide a legal opinion? I mean, especially I have on coming to see if my accessory building is...
Yeah, I mean, again, in response to Andy's question, I mean, there is obviously
Not me specifically, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, but in answer to Andy's question, there is no guarantee that we will be able to inspect. I mean, how many are there? 100 plus?
No, it's not that many.
How many?
Yes, it's more than 100.
Yeah, that was the number I was told, 100 plus. But regardless, I would expect that under those circumstances that there will be a percentage which their conditional use regulations allow us to inspect. There will be another percentage which they're happy to have us come in and take a look at what they've done, and then there'll be a percentage which will be non-responsive or say pound sand. And the pound sand non-responsive ones are the ones that we're going to have to address in some other way or not do anything. And the only way of addressing probably is through some type of court action and inspection warrant.
Okay, any other discussion? So these are two separate items you're asking to have agendized? Ted?
Yeah, I guess, and when I thought about this, trust me, I don't really want to stop the progress of a lot of them, but if it just means getting these things inspected, I'm really pushing for that, especially the ones that are existing. If I don't need a moratorium, that's fine, but my purpose of this is I don't want to see it happen. This is a life safety issue to me, that we don't have somebody with an accessory building of 2,000 square feet, and now, no, he's using his living quarters without the necessary precautions. So if I can just have it request for the agendize the inspection more than the moratorium, I would rather do that. Does that make sense? That's what I'm asking for. Then the inspection on existing buildings, physical inspection to make sure these buildings are within the CUPs that were issued them. Okay?
Or whatever the conditions were. I mean, because
yes,
before the CUP requirement, prior to 2010, they were built without a requirement for a conditional use permit. So I expect that a pretty substantial number of them don't have any CUP.
Okay, so I mean, I don't want to die on a sword. If I only get one, I'm happy, okay?
Okay, so still under discussion, if I may, that it seems to me that you're referring to residential uses, and how would you be able to bring in a commercial use on this? I mean, other than, I guess what I'm getting at is we don't have that many commercial accessory buildings, but the situation that Ted's referring to as far as a life safety issue was a commercial use. Steve.
Yeah, we could include the commercial CUPs offhand. I don't know of any, but there probably are a couple out there, but we definitely could include them.
That be all right with you, Ted?
Yeah, my whole purpose of this thing is a life safety issue, to make sure that what we've approved in the past and what the city has allowed is staying with that, and that's the whole purpose of it. I don't want to see us on the 5 o'clock news.
So you're not going to have a moratorium?
See, then the second question is, would you like us to proceed with the moratorium, if nothing else, to give the ad hoc committee?
Because I will argue that the buildings are purchased from commercial building companies, all of them. They're not purchased from residential. I would argue none of them are commercial. And I think that your ad hoc committee needs to determine, I mean, they are all commercial, and I think I would like a moratorium until you guys determine what is and is not commercial. Because if you look at the architectural review, 4 pages, very clearly, and I think that you guys need to let us know what you're going to do. And I like the life safety issue also, because we have lots of them all around town that have all kinds of businesses in them in a residential area. We have, I can think of 2 places that they work on cars. There's a motorhome factory, there's a glass fabrication shop, there's a molding shop. There's a whole bunch of them.
My purpose, Kevin, is naturally the life safety issue is a big thing for me. And I don't want to punish, in other words, what the, on the moratorium on accessory, I understand what you're saying, but I guess I'm looking at, I hate to say the word, my political capital on this issue. I don't want to blow it by asking for too much. With the ad hoc committee going on, I understand that, what we're doing, and we're trying to make it a better system. And that, but my main concern is to get these inspections done and to make sure that these people are in compliance. And if it means attaching the moratorium, I'm okay. With it, my biggest request is for the inspection.
Because one of the things that, what John just said is that I was not aware of, that if you have a CUP, you can tell somebody to go pound sand. I was not aware of that because it doesn't seem that that's the direction the municipal code goes.
No, I think, just to make sure that we're communicating, that the pound sand comment, let's assume that they have a CUP, but most of the CUPs, as I understand it, do not give us the ability to inspect without some cause. So that somebody has a CUP or doesn't have a CUP, we can get a court order to do an inspection warrant. But there has to be some factual basis upon which to do it, as opposed to a conditional use permit, which may have a condition that allows us to inspect upon 24 hours notice.
Wow.
And talking with Steve, my impression is that most of the CUPs for accessory buildings don't have a provision which would allow us to inspect if the owner doesn't allow us to, and we don't have any factual basis to conclude that there's something going on that shouldn't be going on there.
Well, I hope that the ad hoc committee is going to look at that, because what's the point then of the CUP? It's like, if you can't inspect.
Ted, let's go ahead and make your motion. I don't want us to go any further.
No, I understand.
You want me to rescind my motion, or are you going to make a new motion? I mean, my second, rather?
He says I got to do it in two. So the only thing I'm going to ask for is we agendize request for inspection on existing accessory buildings to ensure compliance to CUP, okay?
Yeah, or whatever conditions, whether it's a CUP or not.
That's the motion?
That's the motion.
Need a second?
Second.
Kevin had seconded. Okay.
Councilmember Bash?
Yes.
Councilmember Grunmeyer? Mayor Pro Tem Hoffman?
Yes.
Mayor Newton?
Yes.
Motion carries.
I got one other.
Okay.
Okay. And this is personal because I live up in LMD4. Those folks up there, up in Valley and Crestview, and the area of Crossrail and Frisian, been a targeted area for vandalism, and that it's an area that I think, and this is I want that our LMD number 4, the direction and work with Andy in that and agendize this to see if we can take some of this overage money and apply it to correcting the problems up there that are causing the situation up there for the residents. I think that's an applicable place to put the funds to help those folks up there. It needs it, and I know the Sheriff's Department has input on it. They've been tracking it, but what I'd like to see is possibly looking at it, using the funds for to correct the vandalism problem up there, the parking enforcement, or improve the fencing, put in solar power cameras, something up there so we can curtail that activity. And as being a member of LMD4, I think that's a very feasible and legal application of using some of that funds for it. So I would like to see, I don't know if I need to agendize, Andy, or if we can, I know it has to go back to the LMD committee or something like that, or if it can be used, but that's where I think we need to fix that up there.
Let me say a couple of things. Number one, we did have a meeting this week, as a matter of fact, with the owners of the golf course regarding these issues of vandalism, and we're working with them to address some of the issues on a short-term basis, and some other issues will be addressed on a long-term basis. So you would like, in addition to those efforts that are currently ongoing, to consider the use of the overage money, or I wouldn't call it overage, the funds that are currently in LMD number 4 to address some of the vandalism issues.
I guess what I'm looking for is there are things we can install or utilize. And I'm thinking like a better fencing system up there in that area to make it not a hangout area. I think cameras up there would help. I think improved lighting up in those situations would help, especially on those two areas I addressed, Crestview and Frisian, and Crossrail and Frisian, and at Valley and Crestview. And those are our areas where we're having the most problems, and I think if we address with some kind of improvements in those with lighting and the fencing up there, I think we can probably curtail some of that, making it an attractive nuisance.
Staff will be glad to bring back a recommendation to the City Council for approval if the city attorney determines that these improvements would constitute proper use of the LMD funds in number 4.
Permissible under the...
Well, if you just check, I don't know if I don't ask.
No, I know, and the only question I have is, and I guess staff will have to provide the information, is what specifically we're talking about in terms of improvements.
Sure.
And a report is fine with you. You don't need to agendize that, Ted.
No.
Okay.
Funds can be used there.
All right. Anything else, Ted?
No, that's good.
Kevin? Robin?
No.
Andy?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to report one good news here is that the County Board of Supervisors today approved their consultant agreement for preliminary engineering as well as environmental documentation for the Hamner Avenue Bridge Replacement Project. So that work will commence. It's actually been ongoing, but that will officially begin for the design, preliminary design, and the environmental documentation.
Thank you, Andy. Staff communications?
Yes, I'd just like to provide one comment since it was offered during public comments. In regards to Hillside and Second, we actually already have a consultant engaged in doing a traffic study for that intersection for the consideration of placement of stop signs, a three-way stop at that location. So we're currently in that evaluation because you do have to make sure when you're putting in any traffic measures like stop signs that is warranted and justified by the traffic count. So we're collecting that information and data, and they're going to come back with an official report and recommendation regarding whether the three-way stop sign on Hillside and Second is warranted.
We changed those rules as far as warrants.
Change the rules?
Yeah.
That's state code.
On Valley View and Willow. We'll discuss that afterwards. Okay.
I'm not sure what you're saying here.
Right.
Traffic study didn't authorize a stop sign, and we put one in anyway.
Because
what we do in Norco.
Complaints of the magnitude of the complaints of the neighbors and the situations there, even though the count didn't warrant it.
And as you notwithstanding, they thought it was...
Well, the reason we did it was because somebody ran into a man's house. If you recall,
the health and safety issues, notwithstanding the lack of warrants,
Yeah, I mean, the process regardless is we would always do the study because that's what we're required to do. Obviously, council can elect to do what they want to do, but we just, as far as the engineering side, we just do the study.
Right. And you got that gentleman's name, the resident that had the concerns?
Yes.
Okay, good. Frankie, anything? Gina?
No, I have nothing.
Chief? Well, thank you. In remembrance of December 7th, Pearl Harbor, this meeting's adjourned.